Hey everybody, how's it going? Very sorry for the wait. I needed a coffee. It was a must-have thing for me to get this live stream started. Um, yeah, so it's a crazy day. It's the last episode of Game of Thrones. Period. The show's been going on for about like 8 years now. It started in was it April 17th, 2011. Absolutely crazy. And I want to thank everyone who's here in the chat, as well as everyone who supported me through making these videos. Um, Even right now, what I will say, a lot of people are having issues with how this story is written, and how just overall everything's going, and everyone's upset at the producers. The only thing I really can say with the show is, they produced some great television, and with that, they created a giant fan base, right? Obviously there's in some aspects didn't go the way that we wanted, but at the end of the day, they did give us a great show, very well written. Except I guess for this last season, depending on your opinion. But I'm really grateful. So thank you guys all for your support, and thank you to Game of Thrones. Right, it's been a hell of a ride. So it's incredible, and it's kind of the end of an era, which is crazy. So I'm looking forward to talking to all you guys about this episode, see what everybody thinks in terms of predictions, what we can expect to happen. Hopefully these leaks that came out aren't true, but we'll see what happens. Really, and my issue with this season, all in all, is just the character development aspect of it. And that's kind of the main thing that I said in one of my videos, and I've been kind of talking about on and on again. It's just that I feel like they always went the route of what was the quickest, and for some reason they seem to forget what would have been satisfying. You know what I mean? I said this in my breakdown video. The one thing for me was I felt like Daenerys burning King's Landing was very unearned. And I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. I was one of those people who said I knew Daenerys was going to burn King's Landing. It made sense that was her character arc, but I feel like it came out of nowhere, and I feel like they kind of threw her character arc out of the window for the sake of, burning King's Landing, right? Because that was her character arc. And there's just certain things, like I feel like in episode 4, the writing process was, okay, we need something exciting and surprising to happen. So for one, we'll make Daenerys forget about the Iron Fleet, even though they established that was, a thing that they were aware about. And 2, they'll kill Rhaegal, right? And my issue with that was it felt unearned, and I guess it was the development of Daenerys' character. But for me to justify Daenerys doing something so crazy, just murdering civilians, they should have killed Rhaegal when the bells rang in episode 5, and that would have at least warranted, that drastic action. Siri's trying to do some research for me. Anyways, so all in all was that, and my big issue, my key issue with this story, and this isn't me as like an online Game of Thrones personality, it's really just from a fan's perspective. I'm the biggest Jon Snow fan. And it's very hard to watch a show when your favorite character's been completely sidelined. He was my favorite character since episode 1 of season 1 for some weird reason. I followed him all the way through the show, and they really, really sidelined him. Like, they gave him nothing. In both the key episodes, Battle for Winterfell and The Last War against Cersei, they sidelined him as a character, and they literally gave his roles to Arya. So, as a fan of Jon, I feel kind of shortchanged on that, and maybe it's all worth it. And we'll talk more about Jon Snow's story arc in this episode. But in my mind, the only way that they can fix his character is to make him sit on the throne. And a lot of people say that it's too common sense for him to sit on the throne. It's too established. It's too predictable. But I feel like you got to capitalize on your plot points at some point. And they did capitalize on Daenerys burning King's Landing to the ground, even though they didn't really execute it well, in my opinion. And I feel like they really need to have Jon sit on that throne to make it feel like this whole show had a purpose. Because I feel like we're in this difficult place right now where if some random person sits on the throne, it's going to feel cheap. It's going to make this show feel like it has no narrative purpose. Um, and there's going to be no arc to the story. So that's my key issue with this show. And I'm sure a lot of people are worried about wasting 8 years of their lives watching this show, right? And the opinions on the producers, I've seen some stuff where these guys are like, oh, who needs character development? Who needs um, character arcs, and who needs plot trends? So that makes me a little bit nervous, where we started the show with a war king who sat on the throne and wasn't a good leader, and with a White Walker threat looming to the north, and we're going to end with no White Walker threat and another jabroni sitting on the throne. So who knows, but we'll see what happens. I'm a little worried about this episode, but that's why we're here to talk about it. So that's it for my beginning rant. Let's go into the chat and see how everyone's doing. First of all, programmer of video games, thank you for showing up. Faraz, Big Easy, Gabby P, Cameron, he was first. I want to point that out. Lula, Tina, what's going on? Lisa. So we got a lot of stuff going on here. And we got a lot of people in the chat. My gosh, we almost have 500 people. So that's awesome. So, and let me know too. I want to go through all of your guys' predictions. I want to read them off, see what I think. I'm not going to dive. Man, will we? How about later in the live stream, we'll dive into the leaks. And if you want to leave, you can. We can get into that. Honestly, my opinion aligns a lot with the leaks. But there are a couple surprises. I honestly, before we get started, I just want to say a lot of people are saying that these leaks seem legit. And the last couple episodes, the leaks have been right, but I will say that they have recorded multiple endings. Maybe they wrote multiple endings, and the ending with this leak here was just put a random person in that role, right? Like, let's say for the sake of example, the ending is a bunch of our characters elect a new king, right? That king or queen could be Sansa, could be Jon, could be Daenerys, could live after all this and be queen, which I doubt it. I'm convinced she's going to die. It could be Arya, it could be Bran, you know what I mean? And they could just kind of fill in a character as a placeholder, and HBO and the producers of the show might be happy that that aspect of the episode leaked. Or maybe there's nobody on the throne at the end of it and everything splits up in 7 kingdoms, right? Everyone has their own opinion, and I'm not willing to completely jump in on the legitimacy of the leak so far. But let's get through your questions. All right, so I always said I was never the best at going through questions, so let's see if I can run through it properly. If you guys want 100% your question to be guaranteed answered, do at BuzzTox in the chat. It highlights it in orange. I'll be able to quickly see it and answer it for you guys. Other than that, it's the hardest thing ever to try and find a good question in there. So start with Lisa. Lisa says, why didn't every dead body in Westeros come alive when the Night King raised the dead at Winterfell, including the crypts? Is there a body/mile or any other limit to his abilities? Only in the north? What? So the Night King is dead, which I think really sucks, unless we're in for a crazy twist later in the show. Well, this episode, because this is the later of the show. In terms of his raising abilities, I never really looked too much into that, other than I think the Night King is warging. I always like the idea of him having similar abilities to Bran. And really the blue eyes are just him warging into the dead. And naturally, I would just assume that that's in the people in the area of his vicinity. I don't think he could raise somebody across the world, right? But then you go into other detailed aspects, like Bran was able to warg into Hodor from the past. So that's a possibility as well. My only thing with the Night King, obviously, was it's clear to me what the arc of the show was, and the Night King wasn't a part of that. The complete arc of this show, I think, was Daenerys' story and seeing her go into madness and become the very thing she wanted to stop, right? I think that's the overall arc of the show and possibly the books. In terms of the Night King, I would have liked him to be dealt with more seriously. The reason is because they're doing a spinoff called The Long Night. And it kind of ruins the momentum for me because there's no mystery behind the White Walkers. I would have liked it much more if the interpretation of like Azor Ahai pulling a flaming sword was the person who pulled a Targaryen child from his wife, right? And that was the sacrifice that was needed to make the Night King go north again. I would have loved if they tried to tell us that Jon was the prince that was promised. He was the prince that was promised to the Night King for multiple reasons. Maybe the Night King, wanted one of Daenerys' dragons and wanted to get the prince that was promised, and you could justify that in any way you can. But the show would end with the defeat of the Night King because this would be the time where they finally defeat him. But I just would have liked more depth with how he was told. But who knows? Like I said, there's lands of always winter. There could be more White Walkers there, but at this point, I really doubt it. Rachel says, "Good morning, everyone." Good morning. Oh, so you're probably somewhere far. Australia. Awesome. Well, I'm glad I could be in your morning routine. Yeah, I wish I could bring you coffee, except you're like across the world. But it's kind of funny that I'm drinking coffee. But interesting fact about me is I drink coffee every hour of every day, apparently. So what else do we got here? A lot of people in the chat. My gosh. Rachel asks, and now she's gone. Oh, geez. Okay. Here we go. Lisa says, I think we saw Khal Drogo if Daenerys dies. He will be seen in set just visiting. Seeing Khal Drogo, at this point, I honestly don't think we'll see him again, but I like the symbolism of his character. When Daenerys went into the House of the Undying, the throne was covered in, I'll say, ash. I usually have said snow, and I think it's still possible for it to snow in King's Landing next episode, so hey. But after that, she goes basically through a door, and she ends up at the wall, and she sees her family, Khal Drogo and her son Rhaego, right? I actually say, if you go to my season 6 prediction videos, I always had the idea that was her going to go visit her family again after death, right? So I think that's a possibility. After Daenerys dies, she'll go on to more peaceful things to see her family again. Uday says, the authors seem more intent on shocking the audience, however illogical and stupid the shocks, maybe rather than properly closing the narrative built in the previous seasons. I'm a little bit shocked on how it was written, just a little bit, because I feel like these guys have, Game of Thrones was in their blood. Like, these guys directed a show, right? So you think that they'd understand their own plot points and imagery and things that they're pushing, right? But there's some aspects of the show where it's like, it's weird to me. It's like they almost chose to go the least impressive way. It was very weird. I don't know. I don't know if they try to avoid being typical and going for shock value. But certain things to me, like one example I give is, how come last season they gave Jon all these moments with the Night King? They had him fall through the ice and fight alone. And then this season they give him nothing. So I thought that was shorthanded there. And they had Benjen. They sacrificed Benjen for no reason. But for me, it's like, in this season, they made Jon just ride the dragon for fun. They made a joke out of it. And then last season, they had Benjen die for nothing. Why don't you just switch the characters? It's such a simple fix, Have Jon be left behind. Have Rhaegal come to save him, and have Jon kind of have that connection and develop that, and that would make us be like, oh my god, like really excited for next season. And then have Benjen, after the wall's been destroyed, come south and help fight with Jon and Bran to defend his family home, right? It would have been so much more impressive and like nice to watch, but they didn't do it, right? And like with the Hound, that was another one of my issues with the Hound's character. Is I always said, like, the Hound was on this arc, right? He was about anger, he was about revenge against his brother, like all that stuff. And then over the course of the show, he seemed to kind of, you realize he has a kind heart, he wants to look after people, but he has a hard shell. He had that moment with Arya, and then he falls off, and then he gets kind of brought back by the really religious guy. I forget his name, but basically he tells him that he has a purpose. And I was hoping at that point the Hound wouldn't be so set on just pointless revenge, right? So in that aspect, they had Beric die for Arya because that was his purpose. And then what was the Hound's purpose? They never clarified it. Um, to me, it would have made more sense if we made the Hound's purpose Arya. The Hound's purpose was to save Arya. It was to be a mentor. It was to put her on the right path. And then at the end of the day, his character arc was to save her, right? And that would be him coming full circle, developing a meaningful relationship with somebody where he cares more about someone than himself, and yada, yada, yada. And then Beric already had character development with Jon. Both of them died. Both of them have been resurrected. And they communicated that together. So why don't we make Beric's purpose about Jon? Right. So certain things like that, I feel like it would have been more satisfying. And that's all in all what I feel about this season is just the dissatisfaction of it. It's just meaningless. Like everything is meaningless. The action was meaningless. Why did Euron have to fight Jaime? It didn't really mean anything to me. The Hound fighting his brother, the Mountain. I care a lot about the Hound, but why does the story of the Hound and this rivalry with his brother warrant any time at all in the penultimate episode of the show? Right? It doesn't. It's not important when you're comparing it to Daenerys taking King's Landing. So I just think they focused on the wrong stuff. So that was overall my main issue. And that kind of feeds into Selection's question, or sorry, Christopher's question. What character arc has been destroyed the most? I don't even know. First of all, Daenerys, I would say her character arc is fine. I expected her to do that. The issue was how it was handled. I feel like they could have had a way smarter conclusion to have her burn King's Landing. You know, whether it's save Rhaegal for episode 5 when the bells ring, kill Rhaegal. Just something that makes sense. Jon, I feel like I would say Jon because he's my favorite character, and they just eliminated his arc entirely. Like he was set up to be a Targaryen, which hasn't really been used. The only reason Jon's Targaryen lineage was used was just to make politics for Varys to betray Daenerys. That's really it. And that's something that Bran has always gone back to see. Bran always goes back because he believes that Jon is so important, yada, 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 but clearly it's not. He always had these moments with the Night King. That's not important. And that's another disappointing character arc was the Night King. It was just something that was sidelined. So I think it was the Night King and Jon. I feel like those were just sidelined because the White Walker threat was completely thrown out. And Jon's character really, the core of his character was the White Walker threat. So at this point, I really don't know. Selection says, what do you think about Daenerys getting exiled? Being back to where she started? No, she's going to die this episode. It doesn't make sense for her to just be exiled. I feel like she needs to have an end. And I feel like the start of this season or the start of the show, she was the conqueror. She was growing and growing and growing. She was taking what's hers so she can then go and sit the 7 kingdoms. And I think, you know, in her mind, she decided that she wanted to build this better world. And I think at the end of the day, she realizes that she's become the very thing that she didn't want. And she's not a character you can save at this point. She's just somebody you stop. She's ruined her reputation. Everyone hates her. I think she's going to turn on the people that she cares about this episode. I think exiling her just doesn't make sense at this point. And by the way, my gosh, people are sending in donations. Really appreciate it. Somebody sent in... I'm so new at this. It's so hard for me to find stuff. Oh, Ken Murphy sent $10. Thank you so much. He says, are you as disappointed in this season as I am? I didn't think it would be worse than season 7, but my expectations were subverted. Yeah, so I don't want to get too negative on this live stream, but that being said, it's something that's going on in the show. So it is important to talk about. In terms of me, I try to see on the bright side. But I just keep getting kicked when I try and, look on the bright side. Like episode 4, my reaction and review, people quoted me. I was like, this is phenomenal. And like, honestly, I thought it was a great episode. But now looking at episode 4 in the context of episode 5, I'm like, maybe it wasn't so great. Yeah, I am very disappointed. How could I not be? You know what I mean? My channel is based on theories and predictions, and this show has single-handedly just flushed them all down the toilet. So of course I'm disappointed. People are pissed, man. There's petitions to rewrite the show, which, you know, I appreciate people's love for the show, but that will never happen. I like to dream that HBO would greenlight a rewrite of the show, but that would never happen, which really sucks. Maybe in 20 years we'll get a remake, but other than that, I don't. They're not going to be doing anything with that show. I just I wish it was fleshed out more. I wish the plots were fleshed out more. I wish that it just made more logical sense storytelling wise, because they didn't follow any of those tropes. So that's all in all my issue on the show. It every single major plot point in this season so far had no reason. Even capturing a white in season 7, it didn't really make any logical sense. It kind of took me back, because I thought the show was great up till episode 4, and then when they just magically decided to capture a white, it's like, well, Jon knows how dangerous they are. He must know it's a suicide mission, and Tyrion knows that his sister is very untrustworthy. So that was my key issue with that. Um, yeah. But Tina, for $20, my gosh, thank you so much. She says, "What is Jon's purpose if he refuses the throne?" I don't know. Oh, he's my favorite character. Will he end up living in the north beyond the wall? What was the point of him coming back to life? Yeah, his point of coming back to life was to be happy. Um, I don't know. For me, it's Jon as a character has to be king at this point, or this whole show is meaningless. And it's not because I'm some crazy fan who's all over Jon Snow. It's because of a couple key things. First of all, the whole purpose of this show is to implement. It's not just about some random sitting on the throne. You know, the issues that everyone had in this show, and with the king on the throne, is that this person on the throne is never qualified. He doesn't have the best interests of the people. They're reckless, and a person who just by blood can sit the throne and have a claim, even though they're not qualified, and they're a madman like Joffrey, or they're ill-informed and they're too sensitive and they're immature like Tommen, right? And I thought the idea of the show was pulling away from that and saying, you know what, the people have suffered enough, and maybe it's time for the people to choose where power resides, right? And that is a like medieval form of diplomacy, democracy, something like that, right? And that's breaking the wheel. That's what Daenerys and Tyrion talk about. They want to break the wheel of the rich crushing the poor, and build a better world where everyone can thrive, right? And Jon is this as a character. That's what Jon represents. You know, he started off as a bastard. He was no one, someone with no power, and he went to the wall and became just as legitimate as somebody who grew up in Flea Bottom, right? And from there, power resided with Jon. He ended up being elected Lord Commander. People chose him to be a leader. He then did that, and he's a character of perspective where he brings people together, building a better world. He brought the wildlings with the Night's Watch. He got killed for it. He then went to the north. He was elected over Sansa, over, you know, anyone else, to be king in the north. Perfect. He then brought the wildlings to the north. He then went to Daenerys and tried to make peace between Daenerys, a foreign invader, to the north. It's bringing peace between people. He even tried to capture a white to bring peace between Cersei and the rest of Westeros. So that all in all is his character, and he was always elected power. So I feel like he's the character at this point where his power always resides with him. People vote for Jon to be the leader. People like him. He does the honorable thing no matter what. And I think in this new world, politics shouldn't take such a forefront. Jon just needs somebody like Davos or Tyrion in his corner, because Jon's just going to do what's right. He's going to do what's right for the world. And I think his character, he should begrudgingly take on the role of king because honor demands it of him. People choose him. I think him stepping down and eliminating or just calling off his throne, it really goes so against his character. Where I feel like Jon in this moment where he feels like he betrayed everyone, he betrayed his family. This person that he supported has now completely burn King's Landing to the ground. And I think that's the biggest thing Jon's coped with in this episode is the fact that he betrayed everything he stood for. That's his honor. He had his own men killing civilians. He backed somebody who he thought was his queen, who stood for something that he didn't. And I feel like Jon as a character would say, I'm going to ride the ship. I'm going to make things right. And I'm going to fix this, rather than him just running away from it. So I hope he does that. If he goes north of the wall, at least it'd be north of the wall with Runaway with Ghost and Tormund. If he takes the Black, I swear to God, it'll be the stupidest ending ever. Because what's the purpose? The Night King's gone. It's just such a waste of a character at that point. So that's how I feel about that. Oh my gosh, another somebody donated 100 something. My gosh, thank you so much, Louis, however you want to say it. Thank you. He says, you think it's realistic that Bran will sit on the throne at the end? What is really his purpose? I'm one of those people who I believe Bran's purpose, has already really finished, but they butchered him so bad that that's it. Bran is not a person who I think should sit the throne. The reason is because I like the idea of this show being future oriented. It's about building a better world. And the thing with Bran is he's based in the past. He's barely a human to begin with. So I think that's an issue. But then you can play devil's advocate and say, hey, he can learn from the past. He can do different things, right? Which is true. And another thing you could say too is he can see all the people and it makes him care for all the people. But let's face it, Bran is not a likable character anymore. He's not qualified to be a king. There's a lot more to being a king than being what Bran is. That's why I feel like Jon should be the king, because the power resides with him. He has honor, he has duty, he has all these king qualities, and Bran has all the knowledge. And Bran would be the perfect council member, right? Not a king. So if he was a king, I think that would be crazy. Before the show was even out, or this season was out, I always liked the idea of Bran returning to his tree. If Bran died, then fine. Magic would die out of the world. But I love the idea of all religion, all magic stemming from the guy under the tree. And I always thought it would be cool if Bran took his place, like under the Isle of Faces, and basically became God. He became God under the God's eye. He became the Red God, the Seven Gods, the Old Gods. Everything that you see that's magic based is because of the guy under the tree. And I think that's really cool, where, you know, people always look above to the heavens when really they should be looking under their feet. So I always thought that would be a cool arc of Bran, but that's not going to happen. And his, I just think his abilities and character was really sidelined. Because if you think about it, like, Bran is really just a warg at this point. He hasn't done anything. That's why I wish what they would have done, instead of constantly going back and telling us one time that Jon was Lyanna Stark's son, and then a season later telling us that he's a legitimate Targaryen. Why don't you tell us all that information in one piece of information and show how that's relevant to the Night King, and then have more flashbacks of him going to the fight for the Dawn? Maybe it's important to see how they beat the Night King the last time, and maybe we could get into more lore and understanding about how to defeat him, right? So I just feel like he was really underhanded in that aspect. And Christy says, thank you so much for your $15 donation. That's awesome. Thank you. She says, is it possible that this all ends is just a storybook reading read by Sam to his children? Yes, that was something that everyone said. And it's not going to be an ending that this all isn't legitimate. I just like the idea that Sam is the one who passes on the story. And I've said that in the past. I love the idea of Sam kind of, he's the intellect, he's the history buff at this point. I think he's the kind of one to pass the torch on to the next generation and share the story. So I like that idea where they write a piece called A Song of Ice and Fire. And that's the story of all of this. Even though I think at this point, the Song of Ice and Fire is basically not even important because the show is now called the Game of Thrones. So it changes the whole way that the show's been run. So I don't even know. So that's my issue with that. What else do we got here? TKS says, do you think Tyrion will go back to Casterly Rock? No. I think Tyrion's going to live, and I think Tyrion's key role is in King's Landing. I think he's been for the last couple seasons, he's been dedicated to building a better world, and after him supporting Daenerys, I think he'll feel very responsible for what's happened, and I think he's going to do his life's work is going to be creating that better world. So I don't think he's going to Casterly Rock. I think it'll be just given to somebody else. But I think Tyrion's going to be picking up the pieces in King's Landing, and I think that's where he's going to spend his time. Timo says, "What do you think the third twist will be about?" Is that a thing? They said that there would be a twist. At this point, I couldn't even wager a guess because twists in this show are not grounded in any type of logic. Like what makes a twist good is not the fact that it's a surprise. It's the fact that it was something that was in front of your nose that you just didn't see, right? And as soon as it clicks, you're like, oh my God. And you can go back and see the buildup of that plot line that's been revealed, that twist that's been revealed that you can see throughout the show. At this point, I don't see there being any logical twist. I feel like the only twist that they'll do is, psych, this person's going to sit on the throne, and they'll throw some random on the throne that will be very unsatisfying. People are going to riot in the streets. Nobody's going to be happy about it, and it won't make logical, thematic plot sense. It won't make any sense. So I think the next twist is going to be who's going to sit the throne, or how it's going to be deconstructed, or if there's even going to be an Iron Throne. I think that's going to be the twist. Or it's Daenerys dying. I honestly, I've known Daenerys has to die. It's been something that I've believed for seasons after seasons. If they consider that a twist, great. I consider it just good storytelling. I don't know. What do we got here? Subvert Expectations says, some of the cast members said that there would be some unexpected characters who show up in the final episode. Who do you think these characters might be? All I can really say at this point is it would be characters that are in the story. Can I talk today? I think it'll just be characters that are in the story who are important, who need to be called to King's Landing to swear fealty to Daenerys. Like Robin. I think Robin, somebody will see. What other? This worked out perfectly, by the way. So my live stream has an advertisement on it, and it's a Game of Thrones advertisement, and I paused it, and I literally can see the map, which is perfect. So I can tell you who I think is going to be there. First of all, the Martells they're all dead. Whoever sits on in Dorne, I think they're going to show up. Tyrells are dead, so I don't know who's going to show up from Highgarden. Gendry's probably going to show up to swear fealty to Daenerys, but he won't. He'll support Davos because Davos saved his life. He'll support Jon because their fathers were friends. I think we could see, Lord Robin Arryn. We could see Yara come back, who is just, they sidelined her character big time. Will we see anybody in Essos? Jeez, will we see anybody in Essos? No, I don't think we will. That's pretty much it. Will Sansa? I think Sansa won't come. She's too smart for that. She's going to stay up in the north where it's safe. She knows if she comes south, she'll be killed. So I really think this episode's going to focus on three characters. It's going to focus on, well, four. Daenerys, but then it's going to focus on three people to stop her. Arya, Tyrion, Jon. And it's going to be kind of a focus on those characters. All I can say is, God, I hope Arya doesn't kill Daenerys. Because Arya was like my second favorite character, and if she kills Daenerys, she will single-handedly be my most hated character on Game of Thrones because they're giving her everything for some reason, even though it defies storytelling, compelling storytelling. Like they would give her everything and Jon would have nothing. So I think Arya is just going to be a sister in this episode and not a faceless person. Yes, that's what I think. KP Polo, K4 Polo. Thank you so much for the donation. That's awesome. He says, do you think that keeping Melisandre alive would explain the responding Unsullied and Dothraki soldiers? No. I think there's only one thing that explains Dothraki and Unsullied coming back, and that's poor writing. And it's sad because there's no sense of consequence. And that's the issue. And that's why Daenerys turning and burning all of King's Landing felt so undeserved. Because she had her Dothraki, she had her Unsullied, and she has a lot of them. Why don't we actually don't show us another Dothraki again? They should have executed them. That's it. And then you feel so like, what was the point of episode 3 then if you bring the Dothraki back? The Night King was just this weird dude who lost in his first battle. So they undermined everything there. I would have loved seeing that battle more, where Daenerys is getting defeated by the Golden Company and they don't get killed in 10 seconds. Maybe it would be nice where when the bell's ringing, Cersei uses the wildfire. She tries to lure in people. And maybe Daenerys, out of desperation, is trying to burn the streets to try and clear the way so no more people die. I don't even know. Just something. But yeah, no, I don't think anything can explain the Unsullied and Dothraki coming back. Melisandre, like she too, she was supposed to have a purpose, and she literally was a matchstick. She just lit stuff on fire and then decided to die. So I wish she had something too. That would have been nice to see. But yeah, I guess we weren't so lucky. What else do we got here? Tina says, what was the point of all the foreshadowing of Daenerys and John's relationship, when it came to her having kids? Yeah, I don't know. I never wanted Daenerys to have kids in the show. I put it in my predictions because I felt like they were going to do that, because all they did was talk about literally every scene Jon and Daenerys had in season 7 was her saying, I can't have children. And then every scene in this season is Jon saying, you are my queen. So I just think they didn't know what to write about. So they just constantly brought it up. I don't know what the point was. And I like the point that they built that romance between them, but it felt very quick. And they turned Jon into just this puppet. So, yeah, I just wish that was handled better. But that's all I can say on that. Sue says, what's happening with the Westeros spinoff? Has it been scrapped? Oh, no, they're going to release that. It's The Long Night, and it's probably going to come out in 2020, 2021, around there. And I don't know how I feel about it. That is supposed to focus on the White Walkers, and I'm going to have a hard time watching that when I watch them get just single-handedly defeated in this season. And that's like the only thing I can say to give me some hope is, like, if HBO wants to make money on this franchise consistently, if you want to be doing spinoff after spinoff of Game of Thrones, you got to get this ending right, because if they butcher it this bad, they just take away the Night King and he means nothing, and they sideline Jon's character and they just end this show with another person on the throne, that could tarnish this brand that they've built. And it already is. Like The Long Night, why would I want to watch a show based on the Night King coming south when clearly he's already been defeated and his plot was butchered? And the problem with that is people who are now writing for The Long Night, and say if they're big Game of Thrones fans like us, let's see if you took me and you put me writing for The Long Night. I wouldn't want to do it because of what happened in this show. I'm held to plot constraints for this spinoff. I can't show any depth to the Night King because there wasn't any in Game of Thrones. So in terms of The Long Night, they can't dive deeper into the Night King. They can't show the reason why he went north other than them just defeating him, because it goes in stark contrast to what they set up in Game of Thrones. So I think they really shot themselves in the foot. So that's why it's like, I love to dream and say, you know what, HBO, like, redo the last 2 seasons, retcon it, because maybe you can salvage this brand and you can continue it for years and years and years. You can do spinoff after spinoff and rebuild that, because Honestly, though, like I'm not a huge proponent of like petitions are great. It's good getting your opinions down on there, but I never thought it would do anything. But the fact like 1 million people is a lot. That's a lot of people. That is a substantial amount of people. I want to be clear, I don't think this is going to happen, but from a business standpoint, why not? Hired writers get 2 slots for Game of Thrones for 2 more years. Fill out your slot. You get monthly subscribers because you're redoing it. It could be a marketing tool. You could say we're remastering it, redoing it, whatever. Get a lot of people on board to rewatch the new and improved end of Game of Thrones, and then you rebuild up this brand that you can then use in different series. I just think at this point they really shot themselves in the foot, and I think it was a mistake to trust. Like Dan and Dave did a great job, I got to say, but for them being the sole writers on this season, it killed it. You need another perspective, you need another opinion, and I feel like these guys just I don't know what they were thinking, but I just think it just wasn't well deserved, and I'm a little worried about the spinoffs, to be honest, because now they're going to be held accountable to Game of Thrones, so it affects everything. Ben says, well, that's cold. Is there going to be an epilogue? Yeah, I think there is. I always said I think there's going to be like a 5-10 minute epilogue. But I don't think it's going to be far in the future. I think it's just going to be like a couple months flash, and it'll be kind of like the wrappings of everything. Like if I were to say the first hour of the episode is the drama that leads up to the fall of Daenerys, and then it ends when Jon or Arya kills Daenerys. God, I hope it's Jon. And then after that, I think there's going to be maybe like a flash, and then we'll see maybe a couple months, kind of the progression of how that's going to work. So that's what I think is going to happen. Laura says, "What do you think Bran will do in the finale?" No, if it's anything like he's done in the past, nothing. Somebody will just wheel him out and plop him where he has to be. She says, "I feel like his storyline hasn't finished yet." Yeah, I honestly don't know. Bran. Bran could become the Three-Eyed Raven. Bran could become the king. Bran could become a council member. I hope to God he doesn't become king. And I think they're not going to make him sit under the tree because I feel like they're done with that. So I just think Bran is there to help facilitate building a better world because he knows the past. He knows what people have done whether they've done wrong. He knows how people have done right, and he can do that to build a better world. Jason says, how can we support you moving forward? Will you be doing more live chats with GOT, or will you focus on Westworld stuff? If so, I would have to start watching Westworld. You know what? For anybody who hasn't watched Westworld, watch it. It's great. It is great. And that means a lot coming from me because honestly, it's kind of funny. I'm not much of a TV guy. I watch Westworld, Game of Thrones, and that's pretty much it. Which, by the way, I need to get into more TV to sustain this channel. But I would recommend Westworld. If you want to feel like you're a part of the conversation, watch Westworld episode by episode and watch my videos along the way. They're actually like, I'm proud of them. They're good. So you can do that. In terms of live chats and what I'm going to be doing moving forward, to be honest with you, I'm still kind of figuring that out. I'll do a live chat with everybody and we can kind of decide the best course forward as a group. Because I know for me, I always like in-depth analysis and I love talking about that kind of stuff. I want to be more than somebody who just reviews and says, this is good. I want to dive deeper into content. So, a part of that is finding content that's actually deep, and that's Westworld. I'm down to find anything else. I'll do movies if that's something you guys want me to do. I was also thinking about, I don't know if you guys would be interested in this, but podcasts where we don't have to necessarily talk about media. We can talk about other things. So there's a lot of different avenues. But at this point, I've realized I need to do a bit of rebranding. And, the Game of Thrones spinoff, that will be on this channel. Westworld will be on this channel. Maybe Watchmen, I'll touch on that. I just need to find new content. And I'll let you guys know about that. And we'll do another live stream where we can kind of talk through everything and see the best course of action moving forward. What do we got here? And by the way, if I was able to write a Game of Thrones series, holy cow, that would be a dream come true of mine. I would wow, it would be incredible. And I don't even know how you get noticed with that kind of stuff. Like I was actually planning on, I'll give you guys an inside scoop, and I'd actually prefer what you guys want. I was thinking about rewriting season 7 and 8, and kind of going through what I would do. Would you prefer me sticking to the rules of what the producers of the show have done, or just run with my creativity and try and like rewrite something? I don't know, but I was thinking about rewriting the ending of the show. Jeff Jones says, I think the twist will be Grey Worm killing Daenerys. Missandei is dead, and all those glaring looks at Jon. He is a free man and angry at Daenerys. Missandei died because of Dany rushed. No, I don't think they're going to do that to Grey Worm's character. I think at this point he feels like he's a fish out of water, and he's in a place where he hates the people, he hates the environment, he wants to go home, and the only person who he really relates to at this point is Daenerys. He wouldn't blame Daenerys for that. If anything, he would be the only one by her side. When everyone leaves, Grey Worm's going to be the only one backing her. Whether Grey Worm dies defending Daenerys, or Daenerys dies and out of peace, I don't know, they send Grey Worm home with the Unsullied. I don't think Grey Worm's going to back down from Daenerys. And secondly, I can't have another character take a moment from Jon. Jon has literally had nothing this season. He's had nothing, no moments at all. He needs something. Like, just give the guy something. And I feel like you can't end the show with Grey Worm killing Daenerys. It's much more impactful when you have two characters that are in love, that are family, they're Targaryens. And they both have a claim to the throne. There's so much emotion involved in those characters. I think it has to be Jon. And that's why I wish, Arya didn't steal another moment from Jon and walking across the destruction of King's Landing. Jon should have been the one to send his men outside of King's Landing and feel so bad that he stayed to try and save the civilians that Daenerys was destroying. So at least give him that. But the guy's gotten nothing, so it kind of sucks. Viola says, I'm in Alberton. Near the wolf that played Adult Ghost. Big shout out to BuzzTox, my fellow Canadian. Thanks for all your hard work. I want Kit to be photographed with Ghost ASAP. Oh, nice. I love Alberta. I was what's really funny is I was actually in Alberta in season 7 when I was recording my reaction and review for episode 7 of Game of Thrones season 7. I was in Alberta for episode 6 and episode 7 of season 7, which is kind of funny. That's why my quality just like it went down. So yeah, that's what I did. So yeah, if you want some little insider there, you can go check out that video. And I'm in Alberta. Michelle says, do you think that while surveying the damage in King's Landing, Davos will find the mother and daughter that Arya had tried to save, sees the toy horse in the daughter's hands? Shireen callback. It's good. That's nice. That is nice. Yeah, I have no qualms with that at all. I think that's awesome. I think that's good because it comes full circle. It shows, I was here hating Melisandre for this, and yet I've been supporting an equally monstrous person. So I think that's great. I don't have no issues with that. I think that would be a really cool thing to see. Will they do it? It's such a specific thing, and honestly, I would put it past the writers not to do it. They would probably just skip past that because it's not important. So that's what I think. Dylan says, when do you see you'll work on your alternative version of season 8? Will you stick to their pacing or add an episode or two? See that I'm thinking through a lot of stuff. I don't know. Because as a writer, by the way, I'm not a writer. I just really like Game of Thrones. But what I would say is, when you're a writer, even though I'm not, you have to be held to constraints, right? And that's what I love about this show is I know the producers of the show said that they wanted to do episode 6 or 7 episodes and then 6 episodes, but you have to be able to tell a compelling story in a certain amount of time. And I think me just increasing the episode count kind of discredits the ability of being an effective writer, because you have to condense an effective story in a certain amount of time. So I would probably hold myself accountable to what they did, but it's still up in the air. But I just want to prove that in the same amount of time, you can still tell a compelling story. And it doesn't have to be predictable. It doesn't have to be, predictable, fan fiction, promotional stuff. It can actually be a compelling story. So I want to do that. Jamie James says, prediction. Jon kills Daenerys. Arya leads a non-lady life with Gendry. Sansa maybe ends up with Tyrion. Night King has more story. Jon ends up on the throne or as a president. Interesting. I think Arya is just going to be alone. I don't think she'll tag along with Gendry. I feel like he'll just be Lord of the Stormlands. Unless, you know what, he might just turn it down because he said, I don't know how to hold the fork. So, yeah, sure. I believe in that. Jon killing Daenerys, I'm game for that. I feel like that has to happen. Sansa ending up with Tyrion, no. I think Sansa's just going to be an independent Queen of the North. I don't think we're not going to get a wrap on that at all. I think that's just going to be held separate. I think Tyrion is going to stay in King's Landing and do his thing. I think Sansa's going to be happy as Queen in the North and do her thing. In terms of the Night King, I don't know. The story's gotten so crazy. I don't even know where they could go with that at this point. I hope that a part of me hopes that they don't do just a twist like that, because it would feel unearned. We saw all the whites. We saw a ton of whites at Winterfell, or White Walkers, I should say. And that would lead us to believe that, they're all dead. And I think there being more is just like a surprise. Like there's no logic to it. It would just be another shock for the sake of shock value, right? I think at this point, a lot of people just feel like the White Walkers were so poorly handled that they just want to hold on that they're still around. But I think they're gone, and I think they just were poorly handled, and that's it. But yeah. So how you doing? Says, what if they remade season 8, which they won't, but if they did that or remade it as a movie, like The Walking Dead is doing, would you watch it? Yeah, I would watch it. You're damn right I would watch it. I would if they remade anything in the last 2 seasons, I would watch it. A movie wouldn't be the worst possible thing. It would be like you're already in a grave and they'll dig it another 6 feet deeper. It's the worst thing you could do. If they couldn't tell a compelling story in 6 episodes, they wouldn't be able to tell it in a 2-hour movie. In terms of yeah, I would watch it, but like they would have to remake season 8 in its entirety, and they won't do that. As much as I want to hope that they will, they won't. So yeah, if they remade anything, I would watch it. The one thing that bums me out though is I love the cast. Like the cast in the show is phenomenal, and it's kind of like Harry Potter. Like imagine in 20 years when they redo Harry Potter, it's gonna happen. It's a money-making machine, and I think it's the same thing with Game of Thrones. I think they're going to remake the show, and here they're not really tied to a specific ending because there's so much you could do with that lore and that story. But I would just miss the cast, so that would be the one issue. Silent says, "Will Tyrion die?" Nope, he's going to live. Somebody asks, what is the ending I'm hoping for? Yeah, at this point, the only thing that could possibly save the show for me is if Jon sits on the throne. That's the only thing. Jon kills Daenerys, Jon sits on the throne. That's it. I'm very focused on that. Honestly, anything else could happen and I wouldn't care. Jon has to sit on the throne, in my opinion. And if he doesn't, then that's it. That's the only thing I possibly could ask for this episode. And I already went through it. I think it's more than just him being Jon Snow and sitting on the throne. I think there's a lot of meaning behind. Even though he's Aegon Targaryen, I would like him to go by Jon Snow and be the bastard on the throne who was elected to be on the throne. I like that idea. I feel like that's important. I feel like that's the arc of the show, and I feel like Jon represents that. So Yeah, I feel like if Jon doesn't sit at the throne at this point, it undermines the whole concept of a Game of Thrones. So that's how I feel about that. Subvert says, "What do you think Gendry's role will be in this episode? Do you think that he could end up on the throne, or be part of the council, or end up with Arya, etc.?" Yeah, so Gendry is an interesting one. So he was made Lord of Storm's End by Daenerys. I don't feel one way or another about Gendry, but my one opinion on Gendry is he cannot be king. Reason is because his dad, Rob Baratheon, being a terrible king, and then making Gendry king because of what? He said it himself. He doesn't know how to lead. He doesn't know how to hold a fork. He doesn't know anything about that life, and his character wasn't developed enough. So him sitting on the throne it would make no sense. There wouldn't be any story there. It would be the most anticlimactic thing out there. So will he be king? No. In terms of his purpose next episode, I think the only purpose would be him as a Baratheon who's the Lord of Storm's End and not supporting Daenerys. I think Daenerys is realizing that nobody supports her, and she felt all clever in episode 4 when she made him the Lord of Storm's End, and I think she's going to realize that nope, he still supports Jon because Jon and his father were friends. Jon's hand, basically Davos, saved Gendry, so Gendry is still in debt to them, and it just shows that Daenerys has no grasp on Westeros at all. Even people that she's nice and kind to, she still can't get in control. Sorry about that. My dog's having a little coughing spasm. He's okay, though. But yeah, he's 50-50. Either he's going to be Lord of Storm's End or he'll run away with Arya. Sure, that's something that I think he could do. Tina says, do you think Jon will end up killing Daenerys and give up his rights to the throne to live in the North? So, do I think he will kill Daenerys? Yes. I thought that was something that would always happen. It just makes sense for those characters. In terms of him dropping the throne, I certainly hope not. I hope he's king, but watch, they're going to shock us. Jon's going to drop his throne. He's going to go live off somewhere. It depends how they handle it. If he goes north of the wall, maybe I'd be a bit more happy. If he went to the Night's Watch, I think that would be the stupidest thing ever. But we'll see what happens. Lyra says, please give your thoughts on Tyrion's ending. I did. Tyrion will not die. He will live. There's no way in hell he's going to die. In terms of what he's going to do, I think he's just going to... He always dreamed of the Imp's Delight. I think he's just going to be a wealthy guy in King's Landing. I think he's going to help build the better world, right? We have those key characters. We have Davos, Sam, Tyrion, a lot of other intelligent characters who can help build this better world. It's something that Tyrion always wanted, but he always put his faith in the wrong person. I think at the end of the show, he'll have to put faith in himself a bit and start building this better world. So I think that's his role. Rachel gave me $2.99. Got to support that coffee habit. You have no idea how happy that makes me. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting my addiction. I really appreciate it. What else do we got here? Gis Girl says, now that there are no more Stark males, will the Stark family start following the female line like the Mormont clan? I don't know. I could sound really ignorant here, but did the Mormont start following the females? I think they just ran out of men because Jorah was exiled. Gior took the wall because he was a disgrace. And that was that. So Lyanna had to take it. So at this point, to answer your question, I guess yes, because Sansa would be the only candidate to have an heir, I think. Unless Bran gets out of that wheelchair. But no, I think whoever will be born from Sansa, I don't know. But maybe the rules of the world will change where it's not just the first male. Maybe it's, whoever's most qualified. All right, what do we got here? Jem says, show us your dog, unlike Jon Snow. Oh yeah, trust me, I'd have a much better moment with my dog. He's a little suck. He's like a poodle Bichon, and he's like 16 years old. He's like a walking fossil. He's an old dog, but I'm proud of him. He's like, yeah, he's 16. That's very old for his breed. Ray says, "Do you think that Drogon is the last dragon? What will become of him if Daenerys dies?" Last dragon, yes. If they had a dragon come out of nowhere, it would be the end of the show. No. What I think is going to happen to him, I think Jon will kill him. After what happened in King's Landing, I don't see any character wanting to have a dragon around, because a dragon represents power. It represents a very dictatorship society, because you have this massive weapon that's like a nuke, that could, bend people to your will, and you can't have that. So I think we saw Jon petting Drogon last season for a reason. After Daenerys dies, Jon's the only Targaryen that Drogon would trust. So I think Jon's gonna go up for a pet and stick him one. So I think that's what's gonna happen. It'll be tragic because Drogon is this innocent dragon, but he was used for bad things. So I think Drogon can't live. So I think Jon's gonna kill him, her, whatever. Miss YouTuber asks, who is your least favorite YouTuber and why? Did I say YouTuber? Why did I say YouTuber? Worst character and why? I need to go through the psychology of my mind and why I said YouTuber. Anyways, character. My least favorite character, who's somebody that was on the screen and I just want it to be over. So it's clear Jon's my favorite. I'm trying to think of my least favorite character. It's very hard. Arya was my favorite character, my second favorite character always. But this season, I find that it's not Arya Stark's fault, but I'm mad at her because she's destroying the story, in my opinion. So I'm angry at Arya for the character that she's become. In terms of, but not because of what the producers of the show made her done. If that makes any sense? I'm upset about that. I need a list of characters. It's hard to just go off on it. I couldn't even tell you. I don't even know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have an answer for you. I have no idea. I think at this point, all the characters that I didn't like are out of the picture, so it's not a problem. Wild Grunt, $3. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I'll buy myself a coffee. Feed my coffee addiction. Elena says, the problem is that the writers shouldn't constrain themselves that much. They needed more episodes to actually make the season believable. True. So that was me talking about constraining myself to the episodes that they did. I don't know if the producers of the show decided it should be that short. But I still believe, sure, an extra episode or two would have done something. But based on the story that they've told, they've really simplified it, and they've told it in that time. I'm just of the belief that they could still tell somewhat of a compelling story. They've developed enough over 7 seasons for us to go back to. So I don't, in this aspect, I think they could have made an excellent season with 6 episodes. I actually think that they could. But, obviously a couple of episodes would have helped. His nose is bleeding or it's a booger. Is my nose bleeding? No, I'm good. Maybe it's just my beard. Edil, my dog's scratching on the door. Edil says Sansa reminds her of Queen Elizabeth. Very true. People are drawing a lot of connections there. George R. R. Martin, the writer of the book, says that he always goes back to history, right? And I feel like Sansa's tale, being like Queen Elizabeth, I think is very cool. Miss YouTuber says it's a crime not showing us the dog. And why does everyone want to see my dog? I'm like strangely protective over him, like a parent. Is that weird? Eddie Tor says, a good theory I heard is that they have a parody of Ned's execution, but this time Arya has the skills to stop it. I think that's cool. I think that's very cool. Yep, I like that. I like that idea where Arya finally, instead of just watching, has her redemptive moment and saves that person. That would have been awesome. Like, instead of giving Arya the two most iconic moments in episode 3 and episode 5, give some to Jon and give her the moment to rescue her brother. That's a genius prediction. I love that. Have Jon on the execution block, just like his dad, in the same place. Arya's watching, but instead of just watching her father die like Ned Stark, she instead steps up and saves her brother Jon. That's like, you blew my mind. That's actually an amazing theory because Jon and Ned are very similar characters. Jon and Arya have an amazing relationship, and I think that would be very, very cool. But then that brings in a lot of like questions on like, will a riot break out? Like, how do they go from there? But I think that's a very cool idea. I like that. That would give legitimacy to Arya's plotline, where she uses her skills to be faceless to return to herself as Arya Stark, saving her family, kind of showing that arc of her as a character, which I think is awesome. Yeah, it's very cool. Lee Norris says D&D with fast-paced writing and poor writing destroyed the magic of the show. Such a waste. Yeah, it kind of sucks. I don't know. I really had my hopes up. My key disappointments are just, in certain character development. Daenerys, she should have burned King's Landing. Should have been handled better. The Night King was, I still can't believe the Night King was handled the way he was. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, how did two producers of a show who developed this whole show, they know everything they put into it, literally in 5 minutes they could say, oh yeah, well, Arya's good at fighting, she could just drop it and stab him, and then that's it, the White Walkers win. How about instead you show some respect to this thing you've developed into your fans and like at least storyboard it, like put on the key things that the White Walkers have done. They turn children into White Walkers. They use spiral symbols. The Night King has a fascination with Bran. The Night King caught Bran in the Weirwood tree. The Night King keeps having these moments with Jon. And take those plot points, group them together, and try and come up with a actual meaningful solution. I get dramatic when I do this. I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, it just blows my mind. Like show some like goddamn respect for your show. Like, look at the key plot points you've set up and come up with a cohesive story. So I don't even know. That is just crazy how they did that. Ashlyn Morrow, did I say that right? Ashlyn Mario says, I think Drogon goes away and lays eggs, and the Night King is resurrected in the lands of always winter, and Aegon Targaryen becomes the 100th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Your opinion? Honestly, I think a lot of it comes out of left field. Drogon laying eggs and there being another dragon. What's the purpose? What's the point of having another dragon? I think it's much more meaningful to kill the last dragon because they don't want that kind of thing to happen again. I think that's a lot more meaningful than just being like, surprise, there's more dragons. So I disagree with that. In terms of the Night King being resurrected, how, why? I don't think we've been led to believe that could happen. So I think that kind of comes out of nowhere. I'm sorry I'm deconstructing it, but that's how I feel. In terms of Aegon Targaryen becoming the 100th Lord Commander, I think I disagree with the idea of using Jon's name as Aegon Targaryen. I think the whole point of Jon's character is that he means so much, his blood is so much, but he chooses to be Jon. He's a bastard of the North. He's Ned Stark's son, right? So I like that much more for his character. So I like the idea of Jon, associating himself with being a Snow, being from the North, and not from being a Targaryen or anything like that. Idle says, Varys already poisoned Daenerys? No, they wouldn't touch on that. Yeah, they would never touch on that. And they already said that she's not eating anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I think the next episode being like, oh my God, she's poisoned. It just kind of, it wouldn't feel right. So no, I don't think she's poisoned. What else do we got here? S. Jeasley says, all Jon and the Night King stare downs felt like they would definitely fight, and Jon would be the one to kill him. I think that was the plan from the start, but something happened for them to change it up. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. They literally could have just developed anything. Like I had my own ideas on how the Night King would happen, and I think it would be nice for Jon to at least have a fight with him, because clearly there was some interest there. They were building on that, because it was Jon Snow's fight, and he did nothing about it other than scream at a dragon. But like, if they're gonna do cheap storylines or plot lines, I don't know why they didn't just run with it. Like, if I was just to design a cheap storyline right now, I'm like, okay, the Night King resurrects the dead. They don't attack Jon because Jon is dead. Boom. Jon's able to fight the Night King. Arya comes and kills him. Like, that already, to me, like, sure, you can complain about it. There's plot holes in it, but it's still more impactful than the way they did it. So yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of there actually being a connection between Jon and the Night King, because both of them are alive and dead. Both are ice and fire. The Night King is externally ice, internally dragonglass fire. That's like Jon, inside Targaryen, outside Stark. I think there's a lot to those characters. I think it seemed like the Night King was always after Jon. It would have been nice if they made it seem like that. And that would be an excellent twist if, instead of doing these stupid, like season 7 and 8, like, show us that the Night King has a purpose or reason for trying to get to Jon. So I thought that would be great. That's why my prediction, like, instead of, this was my prediction before the show came out. In the show, they had Bran sitting under the Weirwood tree just waiting for the Night King. In my prediction video, pretty much everyone of importance was out of Winterfell. Daenerys went south, and Jon held down Winterfell. And what happened was, I said that the Night King started fighting Jon, and Whites grabbed Jon, and he started fighting them off, and he got overwhelmed, and he got dragged to the Weirwood tree, and the Night King came with a thing of dragonglass, right? Because it shows motivation. It shows that they want something. But then Rhaegal saves Jon, and Jon makes it out. And everyone else in Winterfell dies. So I thought, like, that would be more impactful. But yeah, I don't know. I would have liked more from those characters. Jack, man, completely forgot subplot. Monster faces, man. Okay, I'm gonna get my dog. Give me 1 second. Forgive my root shorts. I was trying to be comfy, so. Oh, he just got a haircut, so he's looking a bit like my little rat. He's like my little furry guy from Ice Age. David Dresden says, how do you fix the Night King? Instead of just raising the dead, Jon and the Night King fight. The Night King is obviously not trying. Jon gets injured. Night King walks away. Jon gets up. Night King raises dead. Continue as shown. Yep. No, honestly, there's anything they could have done to make it seem more impactful. That's why it's tough, man. Like, I just don't, like, I'll talk about Avengers Endgame a bit, okay? 20-something movies leading up to that movie. That movie was phenomenal. It knew how to please the fans. It did a perfect amount of, like, plot aversion, character arcs, doing what has to be done. Everything they planted in the previous movies made sense because it came to a finished conclusion. And it was satisfying. Like, I left Endgame being like, wow, everything in this season, it seems like the writers were like, we could do this or we could do this. And then they thought about it and they're like, the fans would love this. And so we're going to do that. So, you know what I mean? So, and it just plot, like they went against everything. What would make fans be satisfied and feel right? And they went against that. They went against what logically made sense. So they basically, I don't know what they were thinking. They literally went with the least possible scenario. It's crazy. I don't know. People are saying Jack is so cute. Oh, look at that. He's in another world right now. I don't know. I don't know what his deal is. Oh, Jack, we got $1.99. Thank you so much, Saria. Is that how you say it? What else do we got here? Oh, somebody asked me to give Jack a belly scratch. This is turning into a weird video, man. Is your dog Bran? You know what? If Bran was a dog, it would be him. Very right, several letters. Oh, that's a good question. Idol, I think it is. Thank you so much for the donation. She says Varys writes several letters. Who will get them? For some reason, that was deleted. But anyways, I'll ask. I'll say it. He will get letters. He probably sent the letters to the person who's in Dorne, who took over the Firelands. What do you call it? I forget. Whoever is the leader of Dorne, he will get it. What lords are even left? Just for the sake of time, I'll say anybody who is a lord of something, then they will get it. That's pretty much it. And I think it's going to be that realization that, you know, the secret's out. There's nothing that Daenerys can do. Everyone's supporting Jon. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. Man, I have no questions because everyone's just gushing over Jack. And what's up with that? Okay, I feel like I'm missing a joke on something. So everyone always says like Hot Pie. Hot Pie sits on the throne. Hot Pie this, Hot Pie that. When was the last time we saw Hot Pie? Was that when do we see him? Like season 6 we saw him? I'm not sure. Oh no. Oh no. That's cute. He'll just sit here. Okay. Your dog looks so traumatized. Yeah, I guess so. J-Dog says, so what if the throne gets melted down into a round table, setting up the Night King, or setting up the kings of the round table idea? Also, Drogon could bond with Jon before they go north after killing Daenerys. I think Drogon is dead. I just feel like you can't have dragons after all that went down. I think the round table, like, sure, that's an interesting idea. It kind of leads towards more of a democracy and less like a one leader idea. So sure. The fact of the Iron Throne just being burned down to a table, you know, there's obviously some issues with that. But I appreciate the idea. Jasmine asks, what about Daario? I'm convinced Dario's out. I don't think we're going to see Daario anymore. Because I just don't see that there's a point. Him being one of those characters that we see in the show, I just don't think it makes sense because now Daenerys is in Westeros. There's nothing Daario could do. That really makes sense. I just see him as an Essos. So I don't really see a point of him coming back. What else we got here? S. Greasley. Tyrion tells Varys that 8 people know Jon's identity. Who is the 8th? I counted 7. Arya, Sansa, Bran, Jon, Tyrion, Varys, Daenerys. Unless he's the 8th, was meant to be Howland Reed. Yeah, it's possible. Honestly, at this point, I don't think it matters. because everyone knows. I think hopefully Varys spreaded it and had somewhat of a purpose in the show. Yeah. At this point, a lot more people than 8 know, and the secret's out, and I think Daenerys has to deal with that. Andrea says, what if episode 5 was Bran showing Jon a vision of the consequences of him telling Sansa about his parents? I don't think Bran really can do that. Like sometimes he sees flashes of the future, but I don't think he's like a prophet where he can see like every aspect of the future. So I don't think that would be a thing. At least Bran would be somewhat useful. But I think that just gets too deep into a concept. Jennifer says, do you think that they will fulfill any prophecies, Melisandre, etc., since they abandoned the Azor Ahai thing? Yeah, I think that's crazy. The one thing I'm sticking to is the prophecy I put in all my videos. It's the prophecy where she says it's to Stannis, and she says, you will betray who you love, you will betray your family, you'll betray everything you once held dear, and it will all be worth it because you will be king. And that's probably the core of what I think has to, for me to feel like this show has done something, it has to be Jon on that throne. Because Melisandre has put in her faith in Jon. If you look at all of her prophecies in the past, they all go to Jon, and she brought him back to life, for God's sake. I think Jon's story arc would align with that prophecy, hopefully, if the writers did a good job. He betrayed his family when he constantly went against their wishes and how they felt because he kept supporting Daenerys. He betrayed everything. In the last episode, we pretty much saw him betray everything he held dear. He holds his family dear. He holds himself, his honor. Himself as a character identifies himself as someone of honor. And I think his issue is he betrayed himself last episode because he supported Daenerys. She led him to betray everything that he was in killing civilians and killing innocent people. He had the Northmen killing civilians that he had to stop. And I think that'll continue next episode where we're going to see, or this episode that we're going to see in an hour, where I think he's going to betray his honor again. He's going to completely betray what he stands for. Where last season, where he said that he's not going to swear an oath he can't uphold, where that's really important to him, because if you don't give your word, then word stops meaning things. I think this is going to be the first time we're going to see Jon betray his word. I think he's going to try and get on Daenerys' good side and then stab her in the back. And he's going to betray himself at that point. He'd betray his family, and then he's going to betray the one he holds most dear, his love, and that's Daenerys, right? So I think Jon is going to fulfill that prophecy. He's going to betray everything of who he is. And if the show ends properly, he should sit on the throne, because there was always a big connection between the king betraying everything they held dear, being ice and fire, or being fire, having importance, things like that. So I think in order to just wrap this up in a compelling way, it has to be Jon. So yeah, that's what I think about prophecy in that aspect. That's how I think that should end. What else do we got? Ray Skymunker says, will Samuel be writing a Song of Ice and Fire at the end? What do you predict will be the last scene? Yeah, so I love that idea of Bran continuing on the story. But honestly, I feel like this show isn't a Song of Ice and Fire. This show is completely a Game of Thrones. I feel like they threw out a Song of Ice and Fire because the show doesn't deal with ice and fire. It deals with the throne. So I think if anything, Sam would write the Game of Thrones. And hopefully we get more clarification if George R.R. Martin actually releases a book. But I do like that idea of Sam documenting everything, kind of passing it on for future generations. And yeah, being really heavily involved in the Citadel and things like that. So, yeah. Milani says, Jon will die a tragic hero, killing the aunt he loved who went mad. It's classic. I don't see Jon dying. I feel like that's a part of his bittersweet character. He already died, and I think he just has to live with his mistakes at this point. I think that that's kind of his role. I don't think Jon's gonna die. If I had to give a percentage to it, 95% Jon doesn't die. I would honestly say 100. I don't think Jon's dying at all. I think Daenerys is gonna die, and I think Jon's gonna have to live with the consequences. Um, Jasmine says, "Will you see Tyrion and Sansa together? Would really love to see them rule the kingdom together." No, I think they're just going to be friends. I don't think there's any reason for them to be together. I think Sansa's at this point where she doesn't need someone. She doesn't want someone. She's happy ruling the North alone. She likes it. She's home. Um, there's no purpose to having these characters be together. I think it just doesn't make any sense. So I don't think that'll happen. Tom Lincoln says, "What do you think will make Jon? What do you think will make Jon make the final decision to kill Daenerys? In my opinion, he's not ready to kill her yet, but during the episode, she will threaten his family. That'll be it." Yeah, that makes sense based on the plot lines of the show, right? Excuse me. Arya, when she saw Jon, right? Jon was talking about Sansa, and Arya basically said, "You're a part of our family. Don't forget that." And that's the core of the show, right? The Starks stay together. The pack survives, and I think, yeah, that makes sense. Where Daenerys, obviously she's going to feel betrayed. She's going to feel like Tyrion betrayed her, Sansa betrayed her. She feels like Jon betrayed her. She feels like everyone betrayed her. So, and there was foreshadowing there too, where, and it was in episode 2, Daenerys was like, "Hello, your sister doesn't like me, and if she doesn't support me, she was like, I am her queen." So I wouldn't hold it past Daenerys at this point to want to kill Sansa or to put her under whatever on trial. I don't know, but I think it's safe to say that Jon's family will be threatened, and that will probably push him to over the edge. But I think at this point, though, going into this episode, you will never hear Jon actually mean that Daenerys is his queen. I think he's decided that that is it. Like, he's done. He's like so upset with what's happened. I feel like he doesn't support Daenerys at all. And yeah, maybe he'll just need a final push. I'm not sure. Will we see Robb and Aaron again? Yeah, if he comes to swear fealty or is forced to, we could see him. Unless the show focuses on just Tyrion, Arya, Jon, and Daenerys. Who knows? Will Jon have to fight Grey Worm? Honestly, I would love to see that. Grey Worm, I see ending in one of two ways. Either he dies, or I think if anything would happen, Jon would kill Daenerys, and then Grey Worm would just go out and fight Jon. Or two, Jon kills Daenerys, and then they allow Grey Worm to leave to continue his life with the Unsullied and Essos. If I were to make a guess right now, I would say maybe he'll die. More likely that he'll die, because he already he doesn't have a future anymore. That died with Missandei. So, I'd see the downfall of Grey Worm. That'd be fine. John says, "Does Arya die tonight?" If you asked me a couple episodes ago, I'd say yes. Arya was one of those characters I felt like wasn't gonna last the show, and that was like the tragedy, how she's kind of like a young, tortured kid, yeah, she didn't really get to live life. But based on what's happened so far in the show up to this point, she's killed the Night King. She survived the burn down of King's Landing. She's done pretty much everything. So I think she's gonna live. I don't see any way that she could die. Like, at this point, there's no writing that would even get me to comprehend how she could be killed. So at this point, I don't think Arya is going to die. I think the show's going to end, and the epilogue will be her traveling, going west of Westeros, or doing something. What do we got here? And by the way, don't mind the snoring. My dog passed out, so he might be a little noisy. Hopefully he doesn't get too loud. Da, 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 da. Okay, just going through the questions. Sorry, guys. Very hard to find. Is season 8 the Nickelback of television? You know what's funny about Nickelback is I actually liked Nickelback back in the day. But then I decided to give their new album a try. And I swear to God, every song sounded exactly the same. Like it was exactly the same. I couldn't believe it. Um, I can't believe it. Like, I just don't understand how like Game of Thrones was like the greatest TV show of all time. Like, it was up here. How did it end down here? I don't understand. So I don't know. Um, Sorry guys. There's a lot of questions. I want to make sure they just piled on out of nowhere. So I just want to make sure I go through all of them. Sarah says, doesn't GOT need to at least follow the plot line of Jon's purpose to be brought back to life by the Lord of Light be revealed? Yeah, who knows? You know, like 4 episodes ago, I would have said, shouldn't they hold accountable to everything that they put in on the Night King? All the prophecies and stuff they did there. So the answer is no. Like at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they make you know, I don't even want to say it because they probably will. So at this point, there's nothing on off the table. I feel like we're not in the area of logical storytelling anymore, and it kind of bugs me. Nala says, what about Yara? Probably not enough time left to bring her back, but seems pointless to send her on the Iron Islands to never appear again. They would have had the islands after the war anyway. Yeah, I don't like the way they handled Yara. She was so mishandled as a character. She's like they literally just saved her in the first 10 seconds and then they sent her off away. She had no help with Daenerys, even though she was an ally. She's literally served no purpose. My prediction that I said in my theories was I think the most tragic aspect of the Greyjoys is that Theon grew up as a Stark, but he's the only one who's paid the true Iron price. You know, based on his character arc, he's Ironborn. So I think that would be. I thought that would be the craziest thing. Where what about for once, like what the show used to do is instead of just having this work out, instead of him going into Blackwater Bay and saving Yara, which I don't really think makes much sense. What if he goes to rescue her and she's tortured to hell? She has her tongue cut out and she's broken down to nothing. And you know, Theon's been in that place too, where both the Greyjoys have been knocked down. And maybe Theon sees that Yara can't make it out. She's too far gone. And Theon, who identifies as a Stark, has to take on the mantle of a Greyjoy because he paid the Iron price, and he's the one to you know, lead the Greyjoy fleet. And he would contend against Euron. And I think that rallies up a bunch of support too. Now you have this other drama where, you know, people keep supporting Jon. Well, guess what? Now Theon supports Jon because before Yara bent the knee to Daenerys, and now Theon grew up with Jon. They're brothers. So sorry, Theon and his fleet now support Jon. That would have been more compelling, in my opinion. So I miss the Game of Thrones. Like, where's the Red Wedding? Where's this feeling that my favorite characters aren't safe anymore? Like, I just feel like they've kind of turned it into like a Hollywood movie. But I don't know. Maurice asks, how do you think they could have made it believable for Daenerys to go to the extent of burning the entirety of King's Landing, which everything in it? So obviously with that takes some character development. If you were to give me like a writer's assignment and say like fix Daenerys's character after episode 4 or after episode 3, I would say like, okay, don't kill Rhaegal, keep Rhaegal around. Don't just kill him for shock value. Have Missandei captured, sure. That'll break in Daenerys. You need to villainize the people of King's Landing, right? So, how would you villainize them? Well, maybe they could kill Missandei and the people of King's Landing look like savages and they beat up on Missandei's body. You know what I mean? Just something to villainize the citizens of King's Landing in Daenerys's mind. But like another thing, like when the bells rang, it made no sense for me that the bells rang. Daenerys was like, okay, screw everyone. It makes no sense at all. Maybe when the bells ring, have Rhaegal there and have him just get shot by a Scorpion ballista. Boom. In Daenerys's mind, the people of King's Landing showed truce and they still backstabbed her. And it's that realization that no matter what she does, she will constantly be betrayed by not only Cersei, but by the people. And she'll be like, screw it, I'm going to take matters in my own hands because this place is messed up. So I think that's just from me altering a couple stuff, but they could have done, even on top of that, they could have written a lot more to bring that believability in, not just on the people of King's Landing and on Rhaegal, but by developing Daenerys' character more and making her seem like that's something that she would do. But yeah, that's what I think about that. Tina says, the first time I participated in a live video and it's so fun, BuzzTox. Thank you. You make the Game of Thrones world that much better. Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's so sad it's coming to an end. Yeah, I know. It really sucks that it's ending. But I'm glad you got to enjoy participating in this live chat. I love chatting with you guys. It's so much fun. It's the best. And I love hearing you guys' opinions, and we can go through all that, which is great. What else do we got? Crypto Fees. Jon stabbed Daenerys with the Dragon Glass Night Queen. No. I don't think we're going to see a Night Queen. Night Queen. I think the White Walkers are gone. I think that's it. Sorry. It would be a cool idea, but you need magic and other stuff to pull that off. So I don't think Jon's just going to stab her and she's magically just going to turn into this Ice Queen. Arjun Ang says, Jon was with Daenerys at the burning of King's Landing. Will the people accept him as the king now? It seems more logical to choose a leader from the people they're not present, like Sansa. The only possible person who I think is worthy for the throne other than Jon is Tyrion. Because like Jon, Tyrion is an underdog. He was the monster, right? Jon was the bastard. And these are the only two characters who I believe could build a better world. Sansa was raised by the politics of King's Landing, and that's what she uses. I think she's great for Queen in the North, but I think her being Queen of the Seven Kingdoms undermines the whole arc of building a better world because she was raised by the people which made it poor. So yeah, that's what I think of that. And in terms of Jon, I don't think anyone, I don't think people would turn on Jon in that aspect, like to that extent. Like, you know, he was saving people. He sent his people back. I don't know. I think Daenerys did so much that she would take a lot of the fall on that. But yeah. Jimmy says, are you scared for it to end? I am. Yeah, I sure am. I don't even know. I don't think that there's even though the show didn't go the way I wanted to, or it kind of caught us all off guard. There's no show I like talking about more. And I don't know if there's going to be a show that will be able to fill the void or the empty hole of Game of Thrones. So yeah, it's a shame. We will still have spin-offs to wait for, along with the Lord of the Rings series, which already has a budget of $1 billion. So I sure hope you cover that as well. Yeah, I feel like Lord of the Rings I would have to, but I got to be honest, I don't like it. I don't know why. I don't like Lord of the Rings, whether it's the world or the characters. I have no idea, but I never loved Lord of the Rings. And for some reason, I don't have a desire for it. So I don't know why. I would try and get into it, sure, but it doesn't even compare to Game of Thrones, in my opinion. And on again. Theory, Jon or Arya will kill Daenerys. Jon will refuse the throne and will instead form a council to rule, breaking the wheel. Yeah, no, that's true. It's just who will sit the throne then, and I think you got to watch it. What they're going to do in that story. Yeah, can you please guess and answer why the Night King didn't use any creatures such as a spider or bear in the fight? So, I always said the Night King, we wouldn't see any spiders. I just thought the show was done with that. It's more grounded. It's going to be polar bears or something like that. And I just the White Walkers were extremely underhanded. They set them up to be the end all be all, and how they ended made no sense. There should have been wolves. There should have been bears. There should have been other things that were fighting. Like they should have been an unstoppable force, basically. And the fact that it ended the way it did, I think, was very disappointing. But what's crazy about that is that the Night King was defeated, and then they went to King's Landing, and I'm like, okay, time for Cersei's end, and then she gets plucked in the head by a brick, and that's that. So, just like, obviously, the main aspect of the show is to see Daenerys' downfall, but it's like, what if you switch them? You know what I mean? Like, what if instead of Daenerys burning King's Landing for no reason, it was out of desperation because the Night King was coming south, and she had to beat Cersei, and Cersei wouldn't stop. That would at least justify some of her actions, I guess. I don't know, but like I just feel like the Night King was very underhanded and underused, and I was hoping that he would push them back south, but that never happened. So I don't know. Tom says, what are the odds of a Stark dying this episode? Honestly, I think it's 0. Jon's not a Stark, but he's not going to die. Sansa's in the north. She's not going to die, and she'd be stupid to go south without Daenerys dead. Arya's living. She's been given like every ability, plot armor, protection I've ever seen. I don't see an effective reason to explain why Arya could die this episode. So no, I don't think there's any Starks we're going to see die this episode. And Bran is just Bran. Bran's just going to be after something happens, he'll just be wheeled in somewhere else. Like there's nothing Bran could do that would get him to die. So that's it. Alan Ingram says, I'll go through this. Sansa gets the north. Agree. Bran rebuilds the wall. How? I don't know how. I think that would be stupid if he did. I think the wall's broken, and I think that it should stay that way. Jon gets the throne. Yes. Arya does marry Gendry. No, I think that goes against what they'd set up. You know, she's not a lady. She doesn't want to be married. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. So I agree with you 50%. Somebody asked if I'll show the episode live. No, I won't. I never do. Yeah, no, I don't do that. You got to watch it on your own. I don't know how you're going to do that, but good luck. I'm going to turn this off before the show airs. I'll probably go on for another 25 minutes or so, and then I'll be watching the show, and I'll do my reaction and review right after. I'll probably do a live stream tomorrow to talk about it, because we don't have another episode of Game of Thrones. It's really sad to say. So yeah, I'll probably do another live stream tomorrow, depending on what you guys want, and we can go through and talk about the episode. Yeah. The 8th person is Sam. Correct. Who knows Jon's heritage. Rick Roses says, I think it would make sense if Jon is on the execution stage, Grey Worm is about to kill him, and Arya jumps in and fights Grey Worm, and Jon gets up, grabs his sword just before Dany kills Arya and stabs her. Great. Sure. I love that. The one thing that it's missing out on is I love the idea of Jon betraying everything he holds dear, and that's his honor. And I would love Jon to be like, Daenerys, you're my queen, and then get her, because then that betrays Jon's whole character, and I think that would be a huge journey for him as a character. And like I said, it's Melisandre's prophecy. You'll betray your family, everyone you held dear, your people, the men serving you, and the one you love. And that kind of will sum up Jon's story. So do I think Jon will kill Daenerys? Yes. That's an answer to a question there. Looking for a question. What do we got here? Do you think the Seven Kingdoms will disband at the end, especially with everyone's military being crippled? I think with that ending, it leads to the same end that they wanted to prevent. It's just going to create more wars, more separation. I think the show needs to end with somebody overseeing all the kingdoms to bring peace, that everyone elects to have. So I think that's how it should end. But yeah. Ancient America says, why did D&D create a fantasy show? Then they clarify hate fantasy genre. Oh, when they clearly hate the fantasy genre. I wouldn't go as far as to say that they hate the fantasy genre. I think it's easy to say that based on what they've done here. But I wouldn't say that. I think they've done a lot of great things as well, right? I have I really liked seasons 1 to 6. It was great. And that's what you say with art, right? Like sometimes you just lose it. You get so stuck in something, it's hard to be motivated and finish the story. That's why with movies they change up directors, because it's hard to creatively. It could be the detriment to a franchise if you keep the same director on a movie, because it kind of wears away at them, and you need new creative blood in the show. But this was an interesting situation because obviously Dan and Dave are the producers. They overseed everything. They naturally should be the ones to wrap it. But I feel like they lost their creative juices, right? I feel like they should have had another writer on board. I feel like they do have people there to keep them in check on consistency in the show, to make sure that they don't have any plot holes or contradict themselves. But it seems like they didn't use that. So I don't know. What else do we got here? Jimmy says, one more. What if Cersei was able to hide in the dragon skull and survive? Any thoughts? At this point, I don't think that there's a point. I think Cersei hiding in the dragon skull would be pretty stupid, because I feel like they're done with her character. Why like extend her life further than it has to? Like her arc is dead as far as I'm concerned. So I just don't see the point in that. Isn't John's, so Dylan asks, isn't John's 2 command post an indictment on his ability to lead? Politics take the honor away from you over time, and I don't think he's capable of compromising his core values. But I think that's the root of his character. Like, he needs his core values makes him the prime person to sit the throne, and that's why his council, I think, will be the ones to check his stupid impulses. Like John's my favorite character, but when people say that John's stupid, I disagree. I think John is just, he has such a high regard for his father Ned and honor and how he represents himself as a person. He'll do anything, even if it's to his own detriment, right? I don't think that's stupid. I think he's aware of it, but he does it because he believes that it's the right thing to do. Nikki gives me $2 to feed my coffee addiction. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. That's awesome. April says, do you think Sansa will leave the north to come south to help Jon? I have this weird belief or feeling that everyone who's in Winterfell, it seemed like a goodbye. I feel like we're not going to see them until the epilogue. So at the end of the show, I think we'll see Sansa. I think Sansa would be very stupid to go to south at this point. I feel like she'll just stay in the north. So that's it. I think she'll just have trust in Jon and trust in her sister Arya. And we'll see her ruling Winterfell after the fact. Raw 666 says, I don't know how how can a kingdom like the Seven Kingdoms stay together if it was built on agreed of ruling others and forced compliance if no one that survives wants to rule others? I think I know what you're saying. I just think you got me. I just think, if you have everyone who agrees on one leader that represents everyone's best interest, then everyone is going to vote for them. But the problem is that when you all disband, there becomes it's harder to keep all those relationships together, and that would be the core of somebody overseeing. Like there's a bigger shot at peace of one person overseeing the peace of 7 kingdoms than disbanding all the 7 kingdoms, because what you'll get is 7 different kingdoms with different relationships with each other, and then hate start to form and resentment starts to form between different houses. Whereas a king or queen overseeing everything can be the connective tissue to all the kingdoms and make sure it runs cohesively with trade, all that crap, so that's my answer on that. Cheryl says, what if Daenerys tries to burn Jon and he won't burn? That would be quite the plot point. Sorry, as soon as you said burn, I was like, I lit a candle and I was like, I have like these random spurts of like worry that like for some reason I feel like my house is going to spontaneously catch on fire. But anyways, it would be cool. I would have rathered a million different moments than that, I don't think Jon is like unburnt, and I never really liked that aspect of it. So I don't know. I don't really feel one way or another about it. What do you think will be the death count of the next episode? Do you think who do you think might die? Who won't have an ending at all? And who will we see through to the epilogue? Epilogue, all the Starks, Bran, Arya, Sansa, they're all going to make it. Who's going to die? Daenerys and Grey Worm. Possibly Grey Worm is toast. Daenerys is gone for sure. Who else is even in the show? Like I can't even think of anybody right now. Like everyone's gone. Honestly, I think that's it. I don't think anyone is really going to die except for Daenerys and possibly Grey Worm. But yeah. The only other possibility I would say is Arya. I've been saying Arya. I thought Arya would die for a while, but to me, it seems like they gave her some kind of plot armor. So I don't think anything's going to happen. Hayes Alex says, Jon has been along since the beginning of the show. He embodies Rhaegar's charisma and swordsmanship while maintaining Ned's honor. I can't believe that the show has sickened him. Yeah, I'm not happy with how they handled Jon. I gotta say, it kind of sucks, especially since like all the plot, like he's literally ice and fire. Like he's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And they just like little things, like in season 7, like he went north of the wall, cool. But then they gave Jon his big, like Battle of the Bastards was incredible, right? Jon had his freaking moment. He fought against the Boltons. He fell off the horse after his brother died and faced everyone off. That's amazing, right? But then in season 7, they have Whites grab him and crash him into ice, and then he gets rescued by Benjen. Like there was no purpose to that, rather than before he had a huge purpose when he fought off in Winterfell. So, like, I just want his moments to have purpose, and he hasn't had any moments. That's why it's like, instead of Benjen, it should have been Rhaegal who rescued him, the dragon, and that would have fed into saving us from having that stupid scene where Jon's like, I don't know how to ride a dragon, and then they just hop on and have fun. Like, I think it should have been, deeper than that. Dylan says, are there parallels to draw from both Ned and Daenerys' execution? I'm talking about the dude fleeing the Night's Watch and Varys betraying Daenerys. I need to read your question again. Are there parallels to draws from both Ned and Daenerys' execution? I'm talking about okay. I like that idea. I just don't think that Daenerys is the character that you can line up for execution because she has a giant army. She's a person that you can't summon to execute like Ned. And Ned did it with honor. I feel like Daenerys is going to be killed by Jon, and Jon won't be able to do it with honor. He'll have to just kill her because he thinks he does what is right, even though it betrays what he believes. So I think it'll be in stark contrast, where Ned passes the sentence and swings the sword. That's all that Jon's ever wanted to do. But instead of Jon passing the sentence, he just backstabs her. And I think that kind of goes against how he feels, how he admires Ned, and all that. Lee asks who my favorite character is. Honestly, if you don't know by this point, then you're not paying attention. It's obviously Jon. I talk about it over and over again. He's ice and fire, alive and dead. He's the story of perspective through season 1 to 8. He's learning perspectives from different people and bringing people together. He always gets elected for his power. He never fights for it. He started off as a bastard. I could keep going on, but that's a part of the reason why he's my favorite character. Richard says, do you think Bran could have worked into Drogon? She was headed towards the Red Keep, and then he suddenly turned when they never showed Daenerys again. Nope. That's just kind of a trope. That's a plot escape, and it cheapens Daenerys' actions and her character. I don't think they're going to do that. Sip says, while he freed... Okay, I'm sorry. My dog is, like, being crazy right now. I'm going to grab him. I'm going to throw him out, and I'm going to go to the washroom. Give me, like, a minute, okay? I'll be right back. Be right back. Sorry about that. I hate doing that. This must be the worst. Just staring at my room. Anyway, now I need to find a question. Interesting. Somebody says, have you ever thought of reviewing Black Mirror on your channel? I love Black Mirror. That's awesome. I haven't watched much of it. I've watched a couple episodes. I love it. I love the concepts it deals with. There's another aspect to this YouTube thing. Like, I'll be a little transparent. Obviously, like Game of Thrones is perfect because it has everything I want in the show. I love the characters. You can predict, you can theorize, all that, right? My worry is that I can't jump on a show if it's not if it doesn't earn viewership. I feel like if I were to do Black Mirror, I'm going to do research on popular shows and all that. I don't know, since Black Mirror is centered around, it's not centered around a character. It's centered around themes, and every episode has a different concept of technology. And I feel like a show like that wouldn't really warrant a viewership. I feel like people, after seeing Black Mirror, wouldn't want to watch a review on it, or there's no speculation, there's no theories. There's just an in-deep discussion about it. And I like the discussions that it brings. I just don't know if it would bring people who'd want to watch it. And obviously, like, I want to make content that is insightful. It appeals to a lot of it appeals to me as well as a lot of people, right? That is a factor of it. And it's hard to jump into producing content that doesn't earn any viewership because I have certain things that I need to do in my own life, right? So yes, I like the idea of Black Mirror. I just would have to see if people are interested in looking at that content. That's my very long, drawn out answer. Jimmy says, thanks for all the content. Enjoy watching the last episode. Long live Jack. Take care. Peace, buddy. I'm glad you got to see Jack. Wesnico. I only watched up to season 3. I only watched up to season 3. What? Why are you here then? What? You only watched up to season 3? You haven't seen season 4, 5, 6? Or 7? Or 8? So are you not watching? I'm actually curious. Are you not going to watch tonight's episode? Very interesting. I only watched up to season 3. Could you rate the seasons 1 to 8 in order of your favorite to least favorite? Thanks for your great reviews. Okay, so in terms of ranking them, they're not all exactly fresh fresh in my mind. Um, but if I were to rank them, I would say automatically season 6 is my favorite. I thought it was incredible. I loved it. Sure, like every season, it has some issues, but like I had an issue with how Arya's storyline wrapped up as the faceless person, but it was still thrilling and enjoyable. I know when it aired, you can watch me rant about it. Actually, I wasn't happy with episode 8 of season 6. But other than that, like it was incredible. Battle of the Bastards, incredible. It was action that had a purpose, unlike the last 2 seasons of the show. Season 6 was unbelievable. Next is season 4. Season 4 was fantastic. I loved it. Jon north of the wall, Daenerys kind of taking over Marine. I thought season 4 was incredible, and then probably season 5, and then 3, 2, 1. No. Sorry, but backtrack. It's gonna be 6 is number 1, season 4 is number 2, season 1 is number 3, season 5, season 2, then season 3. I don't know, but regardless, probably season 7 is my second last. Season 8 is my worst. I hate season 8. It's not the yeah, no, season 8's my least favorite. Season 7's my second least. My top 3 is season 6, season 4, and season 5. Ancient America says, didn't the Hodor revelation seem like a setup for some kind of payoff regarding the Three-Eyed Raven's relationship with time travel? Yeah, that honestly, that's another reason why season 6 was phenomenal. Hold the Door Hodor was amazing. Like it was so well done. It was like that is a twist. Like that is an effective twist. It pays on something that we've been introduced to, and it wrapped everything up in a clean bow. It was the send off. It was an actual meaningful send off to a character. Like I got more emotional watching Hodor get killed than Jorah, and we've been following Jorah for 8 seasons. I feel like this season we haven't had a meaningful death yet. They've all been brushed aside. And I would have loved that manipulation to come forward. It was fed into my prediction. My prediction was Bran knew that he could affect the past. So the Night King was going to go after Jon or something of that nature. And Bran knew in his head that Jon was important. So he actually went to the past where the children created the Night King. He warged into the man who was the Night King. And that's how the Night King went mad. That's how the Night King can warg, resurrect people from the dead. That's why he's fascinated with Weirwood. That's why he's fascinated with, you could say, Jon, fire and ice, things like that. So I think you could realize that a part of the Night King's psychology is Bran. So I think that would be really cool. But yeah, they didn't explore that, and they never will. So who knows? Paul says, do you think that there will be another spinoff after GOT since the world of Westeros is too big? Yeah, so we're going to be getting the Long Night spinoff. That's way in the past. I know that they wrote like 4 shows. And I think what they're planning is they want to do a Game of Thrones spinoff for the next 50 years. Like they want to keep rolling it out. So after the Long Night, we're probably going to get another spinoff. And that's my one thing, right? Like HBO, it's a business and wants to make money, right? And that's why my one argument saying like HBO should really remake these 2 seasons, even though I don't think it's going to happen, is because they kind of tarnished their brand. And they need to end this show off right so they can make money off other shows for Game of Thrones, right? And like what I said earlier, right? Like watching a show based on the Long Night and the Night King coming south really kind of sucks to me now, knowing how the Night King ends, how he wasn't really anything. There was no significance to his character, nothing like that. So I think they would have to repair, because now everyone who does a spinoff on the show is being held accountable to the producers of the show's very shitty writing. So I think that's one really key issue there. So I don't know. Frogan says, so you're fine with Jon betraying his character, but when Daenerys does, it's not okay. No, it's not that. It's the escalation there. With Jon, we can see the development of him betraying his honor, because he's being put between a situation of the person that he followed, Queen Daenerys. She led him to betray everything that he holds dear. His people were killing civilians. They were massacring people. And then this episode, his family's probably going to be on the line. So that arc, him killing Daenerys, makes sense to me, because it's him betraying his character to make a better world, because she's done things that Jon couldn't even imagine. Daenerys's character was different. It was her, like, she did say she was going to fly to the Red Keep and whatever, but she always said she was going to fly to the Red Keep, not burn the whole city. So to my surprise, the bells ring, people surrender. She has no motivation, and she goes, okay, instead of me flying to King's Land or to the Red Keep and getting revenge on Cersei, I'm just going to kill innocent people. It made no sense. It made no sense at all. That was completely against her character. Why would she just randomly decide to kill the civilians? They didn't do anything. It wasn't them. Like, they rang the bells. It makes no sense. Whereas Jon killing Daenerys is justified. Daenerys burning civilians isn't. So I think it's two totally different things. Jedi James, thank you so much for the donation. That's awesome. He says, what are your thoughts on the viewing of other seasons after this season ends? If it was a crappy ending, that upsets fans. Yeah, my issue is I started doing kind of a watch along in the past, and I never finished it. The point of it was I would watch the show and kind of dive into themes that we could see payoff. Problem is that we'll know what the payoff is. And honestly, that it might end in a certain way where I don't want to go back and revisit and make videos about it. And I can almost guarantee the videos will get no views. So it's like, it'll be a show that I don't want to watch, and it will be such a small fraction of people who are watching this right now who will actually want to watch that. So I think I don't think that's something that I should do. But Leela says, will I be making videos on the prequels? Yeah, it'll be 2 years from now, so who knows where I'll be in my life, but I'll be keeping this going. Yeah, sure. I don't see any reason why not. In terms of what BuzzTox will be in the future, what I will say is I called it BuzzTox for a reason. I didn't call it Thrones or anything like that, right? Like Game of Thrones show. It's BuzzTox for a reason, because I don't want to be held into a specific category. I'm not just a Game of Thrones channel. I can move around and do different things. So whatever form that takes, we'll see. But I could do more different TV shows. I could do movies. Also, I could bring more of myself, my personality to the show. I could do podcasts talking not about just media, other things. Talk about what's buzzing. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to stray too far away from media, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of ways that I could get into it. There's a lot of different things we could do. I could get into Marvel. I could get into there's a lot of stuff. But yeah, that's it really. There's a lot of different avenues you can go. So somebody asks, how old am I? I just turned 23, so that's how old I am. Yeah, I finished school like a year ago. I worked at a job for a bit. I worked in sales. That's all I'll say about that. And I was working that job until episode 3, and then I quit. So yeah, now I'm just working on this, and then I gotta figure out what's next after that. But yeah, 23. That's how old I am. Jimmy says, I've heard Littlefinger somehow makes a reappearance. I don't know how that's possible, but we'll soon find out. If he makes an appearance at all, it'll be Arya wearing a face, but he won't show up. It doesn't make any sense. There's no importance to Littlefinger even being around. So yeah, I don't think they'll do that. What else do we got here? People are saying they're here from Westworld. Wow, awesome. Well, I'm going to be covering Westworld too, so that's another channel. And for hey, Game of Thrones fans who are here, watch Westworld. If you want to, I'll say it again. If you want a show that you want to talk about as in depth as Game of Thrones, Westworld is your pick. So go watch that show, please. It's awesome. Viola says, "Do you think A Song of Ice and Fire may ultimately be about Jon Snow?" Yes. Melisandre's prophecy said that there would be a son of fire, a warrior of blood, and a king. Yes, I think A Song of Ice and Fire is about Jon. Completely. I think it's about the balance and duality of ice and fire. It's about the bridge between both sides. And Jon is everything. He's life and death, fire, ice, wildling, crow. He's the character of duality. And he's the only character who can bring peace to people because he sees everyone's side and he does what's right. So yeah, I would say that Jon is kind of A Song of Ice and Fire in that way. I think the show is about Jon. What else do we got here? Can Tyrion survive the dragon fire if sentenced by Daenerys? No, they didn't establish he's a Targaryen, and I think them doing another reveal that.
Okay, I found this on the web for answer by the dragon fire sentence, but no, I didn't establish his Targaryen, and I think been doing another movie. Check it out.
Did you guys hear that? Siri's spying on me. That's twice it's come out and just spoke. That's crazy. It never works when I want it to work, but it works when I don't want it to work. Anyways, Oscar says, but you're not the interesting part of all this. It's Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is done, and you're done. You need to go back to sales. Thanks, Oscar. Thanks a lot. Marilyn, thank you so much for showing up. Very nice to see you. What else do we got? Waven says, I totally agree with this guy. I don't understand how Martin is okay with such an ending. First episode, so a masterpiece, and the quality went down so fast. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. S. Jeezy says, oh, wow, everyone's so nice. Everyone's complimenting me. Either way, Max, much appreciate what you've done here. And I, for one, will continue to watch your streams and vids, whichever way you go. Please keep it up. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Somebody asked what country I'm from. Yes, I'm from Canada. Simon says, hi there. Do you think the bittersweet ending will be the rightful ruler on the throne, but ending a scene, a white opening his eyes, the baby we saw the Night King do his magic on? No, because I feel like the reveal of there still being White Walkers, the way they ended it, there's no impact. It's just, again, surprise. Here's a surprise. It's a surprise for the sake of a surprise. I always like it. It's clear that this show has rid the White Walker threat, and the bittersweet ending is going to be who sits on the throne and picks up this better world. To me, bittersweet. To me, there's the two main characters of the show is Daenerys and Jon. Bittersweet is Daenerys dying and Jon having to fulfill his role, fulfilling his role as king. And that's still bitter because Jon is he's not doing what he wants out of life. He's doing what's called upon him, right? So I think that would be extremely bittersweet. Plus all the people who would die on the way there, right? So yeah. Ostro donated. Thank you so much. He says, do you think the writers underestimated the fan base and how closely we were paying attention and cared? You should live stream directly after the episode. Yeah, so I would like to live stream directly after the episode, but the issue is that I like to get out a quality video first, just because it's easier. Like a lot of people pick it up after. Just my face doing a live stream. I feel like I'd rather do that tomorrow. But in terms of them underestimating the fan base, I don't know. Like, there is a casual audience to Game of Thrones, and this clearly is to the casual audience. So I honestly don't even know what to make of it. I think they did kind of want to appeal to that casual audience because that's where they want to be, right? They want to do more movie based. They want to do Star Wars. I'm not saying well, it is, but they want to do more blockbuster type stuff, and they kind of brought that to Game of Thrones. What else do we got here? Could Benjen be the Night King? Benjen's gone, unfortunately. Jessica says, "Do you think that it will end?" Excuse me. Do you think that it will end with this being a dream of Bran's? I don't think. My gosh, I don't think the White Walkers are all gone either. Thoughts? Okay, I'm gonna be straight with you. Jessica, I feel like, um, literally the worst possible thing they could do after all this is for Bran to wake up and say, "I had a bad dream." Um, uh, I don't know. I really don't know. Unless they do like a season 9 and it's Bran waking up and being like, "We have to do this," and they reboot the series. But yeah, I feel like that wouldn't settle well with fans. Um, Yoss says, "I think your prediction has been the most logical to me throughout the series. So thanks. I would like to know what you would have changed between season 7 and 8. We'll be following you in Westworld season 2. Thank you, or season 3. Yeah, I'll make a video about what I'll change, but I would do a more of a focus on A Song of Ice and Fire and not a Game of Thrones. But I do think the core arc of the story is Daenerys' downfall, and I feel like that should have been handled with more respect. And the same with the Night King. I feel like they prioritize Cersei too much. I feel like the story should have been really three aspects. It should have been the Night King, Daenerys' downfall, and Jon's rise to the throne. And Yeah, it's a Song of Ice and Fire. It's the balance between fire and ice, right? And I just think I would have went more in that direction. And there's a lot of things I could have changed. Um, just quick changes to try and make it feel at least more something. I don't know. Somebody saying somebody misses doggy. That's him scratching on the door. He's sometimes he can be a rightful pain. But yeah, that's about it. Stop the Oscar hate, guys. Oscar's allowed to have an opinion. Phyllis says, I'm not going to read that. Samuel, thank you so much for the donation. That's awesome. Jon sits the throne. I wish crap. Programmer, I appreciate what you were saying. I just wish I was able to read what he put there. But he said here, Jon sits the throne and Daenerys gets killed by Robin Aaron. Hashtag go Canada go. Miles Jones for the throne. Couldn't agree more. That's awesome. Someone asks how I'll answer this question. You know what? Since it's 8:20, if you don't want to I'm just gonna dive into leaks now. Screw it. Why not? So if you don't want to be spoiled, just leave. Leave. I'll give you 10 seconds. Leave if you do not want to just dive into these leaks because I'm just gonna dive into them. Okay. I think it's important to talk about, even though I think the legitimacy is in question. But I think it's important. Let's just have an open discussion about it. Why not? So I'll give you 20 seconds, leave, and then we can open a conversation about it. And I don't have to worry about, footing around everything. Okay. So I'll get into it right now. How upset would you be if Bran sits the throne? I know that we talked about it. We talked about it before. but I tried to kind of mask it, so hopefully I didn't make it too on the nose. But the leaks say that Bran will sit on the throne, right? I think that is one of the stupidest things ever. To me, Bran is a council member, or would fulfill his role under the tree. I don't like the idea of him sitting on the throne. Um, I'm honestly nervous. Like, the producers of this show, they've said that after they put out this episode, they're going to go into hiding. Kit Harington, the actor of Jon Snow, said that this episode is disappointing. A part of me wants to say, it won't happen. And there are reasons for me to like question its legitimacy. They've been right in certain aspect. Well, in all the leaks, they were right. But with this one, I'm sure they filmed multiple endings, and it's possible that they could have filled somebody in on the throne. They could have said Sansa, people like Sansa, people like Bran, people like this, people like that. It could be wrong. But it is a possibility, and I think if it happens, you're going to get a lot of angry people, more than usual. The producers of the show, they're just going to go off and drink. That's what they said they're going to do. I think there's going to be a big backlash to how this ends, and I'm afraid for the show, man. Like, I love this show, but it's looking like it'll be one of the least satisfying shows in TV history. I feel like a lot of people are going to feel like they wasted their time. And it's not about like just all the surprises. Like, it's about compelling storytelling that makes sense, and I feel like there's no logic anymore. So if Bran sits the throne, it'll be kind of like, okay, like I can justify it a bit, but how do you want people to feel? Like, you literally, if you knew that Bran was going to sit on the throne, maybe you should have put him in season 5 and given him more development, because that's a character that you took out of a season of a show and you haven't given him much screen time. You sidelined his character. Why would you then make that person king? It makes us feel like we've been, cut short on a plot, right? So that's my one issue with Bran being king, is that he's been given no character development. They kept him out of a season. It just makes no sense. It's stupid. So I'll be furious if Bran's king. I'll be pissed. Because they never developed his character much after he became the three-eyed raven. So I don't know. It would just really suck. SGZ says, do you think it's possible after Jon kills Daenerys, hopefully, that he's so lost with himself that he actually goes back to the real North and reunites with Ghost? Yeah, it's a possibility. I just like, sure, Jon's my favorite character. I like him going to do what makes him happy, but like, that's not his like destiny. You know what I mean? I feel like him as a character has been so developed to the point where like he has to be king. He has to be king. So that's really my key issue with that. Kevin says, is there another episode next week? No. The only thing there's going to be is a documentary. There's going to be a documentary going through the show and how it was made, the whole process, kind of paying tribute to who I want to give kudos to, by the way. The actors, phenomenal. The directors, Miguel Sapochnik, all these other directors, they did an amazing job. The cinematographers, the costume designers, the makeup, everything about this show is phenomenal. Just the writing sucked. So that's my one issue with this. Marie says, what do you think of the criticizers of criticizers? Also known as those who say that the negativity towards season 8 was mostly invalid. What I would say is those people are they're valid to their opinion, just like I'm valid to mine. The only thing I would say is I think people who love the show would be the first ones to tell you that they love the show. They love the show like we do. But I think they're just more of a casual audience, and nothing's wrong with being a casual audience. I just think it's important to acknowledge that, people enjoy the show, people dislike the show, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, you don't want to blindly support something. I think it's important to speak up. And it bugs me when I speak about the show and somebody says, well, don't watch it then. You don't deserve to have an opinion. It was great. Da da da. Well, it's like, look, I'm a bigger fan of Game of Thrones than anything. in my life, like of like in terms of media. I love Game of Thrones, and I think because I love it so much, I'm able to look at it for its missteps and its mistakes, and I think that's important. Um, I think it's important more than anything to be able to look at a piece of media and kind of take it apart and give an effective opinion on it, and not just blindly follow something. Um, so yeah, I think the people who criticize us, who have a negative opinion on the show, they're right to do so, because they have their own opinions. We disagree. I just think it's important to be able to look at a piece of media and look at it for its flaws. It's art. It's up for interpretation. Um, Welcome to Kane's Nation says, will HBO take the redo of season 8 serious? No. No, probably not. Yeah, I don't think so. I'd be shocked if they did. And I honestly think that there's a way that they could make it work business wise. Um, I think they could. I think they could make it work. But I think it would be very disrespectful to the producers of the show. Um, and it would speak negatively a bit PR wise on their company. Why don't they support their talent? That kind of thing. And that's another question, right? We are the viewers of the show, Um, we're not meant to design the show. The show was made for us, and if we like the ending, great. If not, then so be it, right? It was made for our enjoyment. I don't I find it hard to believe that they would make a show just to be for the fans, but who knows? Um, what else do we got here? Leela says, I want to believe that part isn't true about Bran. For Jon not to sit the throne would suck because of his character development. Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I'm at the point where I'm like so looking to. Um, I'm at the point with the show where the night, like a lot of stuff happened in the show that I don't really like how it was handled. But I'm so in Jon's camp where if Jon ends up sitting the throne, then it's a cherry on top of the series. I'll be able to go back and watch season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and not feel like I wasted my time. That to me is it. That's it. I don't care what happens next episode. If Jon sits on the throne, okay, it's fine. It's fine. I can accept the fact that the Night King was thrown away. I can accept the fact that they kind of did some quick maneuvering with Daenerys' character. As long as Jon sits the throne, I can at least still enjoy the show as a piece of art. But if they butcher Jon's character again, I swear to God, I won't be happy. Excuse me while I itch my nose. Ray Skymunker says, Max, the new Night King confirmed. Eyes give it a. Oh, you're talking about my eyes? That's funny. Kevin, are you going to cover the spinoffs? Yes. What else do we got here? Sorry, guys. Trying to find a question here. Yeah, so since I said we're talking about spoilers, I'm not going to shy away from it. That's what Lucifer said. Jon kills Daenerys, feels bad, gives up the throne to Bran. Ugh, so dumb. If Jon sacrifices his throne, like I'm going to be honest with myself here. A part of me wanting Jon on the throne is because I'm a pretty big goddamn fan of Jon. But honestly, though, Jon giving up his throne could fit thematically with the show, right? It's breaking the wheel. Because Jon has a claim to the throne might be a good reason why he doesn't use it, and they elect somebody who's right for the throne. So if Jon sacrifices himself or gives up the throne and says, hey, I'm done, I can still say, okay, that makes sense. And then they elect a new king. But in my opinion, there is only one other person who could be king. It is not Bran. It is Tyrion. Tyrion is the only person outside of Jon who could possibly be king, in my opinion. I think thematically, the character he is, he wants to build a better world. I think it's only Tyrion. So that's what I think about that. Yeah, Megan says, "Do you see the time?" I do. I'm gonna have to wrap this up very soon. Here, guys. Yeah, the show's starting in half an hour, so we do need to wrap this up. So let me take like 5 minutes more of questions. This was a long live stream. How long have I been talking? I've had no water. So I'll take this. Yeah, so put in your questions. I'll kind of wrap it up. We got about 5 minutes, and then we got to watch this show. Hopefully, it's not a complete train wreck. I'm leaking water all over me. Patriot says, you missed. He's having a conversation, but I found it interesting, so I'm going to touch on it. He said, "You missed the point I'm saying. You don't ask an author to rewrite the book because you don't like the ending. The same thing applies to the show." Boom. I agree. That's what I was trying to say. I think I half-assed it. I'm like, art is art, and da da da. That's what I meant. They told a story. That was the story. Art is up for our interpretation, but not up for our like demand. You know what I mean? I got to say, Patriot handled it more eloquently. As much as I personally would love, if HBO knocked on my door telling me I could rewrite the show, you're damn right I'd do it. Do I think I could write good dialogue? No. Could I write a good direction for the show? Sure. But that would never happen. I feel like the only way, like I like to hope as a fan, but the only way that they would redo it is 20 years from now when they want to do a spinoff, or not a spinoff, to remake the series. Oh, Lenny says he loves my show. Thank you. I would hardly consider this a show. I would say, hopefully, you know what the dream would be? This is obviously this is the last episode of Game of Thrones, but hopefully, I wish we could have more shows to talk about. If I could get myself like a studio and we could have like a round table, maybe I can get I don't know, a lot of people who were here before knew Trevor. Trevor was somebody that I did Westworld videos with and Game of Thrones videos with. Trevor's going to be around for Westworld, but maybe I could bring on Trevor. We could do more podcasts, more fun. God, we could do more podcasts and fun stuff and have more of a serious environment rather than me just being in my bedroom. I could do kind of a revamping. That'd be kind of fun. Dylan asks, who's your favorite character? If you haven't watched this last 2 hours and a half, I've been doing nothing but rag on Jon. So Jon's my favorite character. He's awesome. BuzzTox, what would be the perfect ending? Jon kills Daenerys, Jon sits the throne. Cheers. Makes me very happy. That would be the best ending ever at this point. On top of that, Tyrion, Bran, Davos, and Sam would be the council, and they would build the better world with Jon as the leader. So that's what my ideal thing would be. Sip says Tyrion touched a dragon while freeing them in the cave, and therefore just a Targaryen in the true king. No, I like I feel like they haven't established that enough to justify that. I just like I took them at their word. Dragons are intelligent people, dragons. They know whether to trust somebody or not, and Tyrion, I guess, went for them, and I don't even know. I like that idea of Tyrion being a Targaryen, but really, I feel like it's too much at that point. It becomes a soap opera. So yeah, I like Tyrion better being a hated Lannister than being a secret Targaryen. Will Azor Ahai be in this episode? Oh, who the hell knows? You can watch my video, The Myth of Azor Ahai. I talk about how Azor Ahai is the father, and the prince that was promised is the child, and it was the prince that was promised to the Night King. But based on this show, I think Melisandre also says that Azor Ahai is meant to be the king, to lead people into the new world, and like I feel like there's no other way than Jon being Azor Ahai. Like there's no other way. And I think that will be, I think what the showrunners will dictate that being is Azor Ahai, who is Jon stabbing Nissa, right? And that would be Daenerys' downfall. And that will be, Jon will be considered the savior. So that's how I think that'll go. Whether Jon sits the throne or not is up for interpretation. Ibra Canet says Cersei deserved better death, trial, and beheading. Thoughts? No. So Cersei deserved better, but I think drawing out her character to a trial doesn't make sense. I would have liked her to die in the moment. I would have liked if they actually stuck to Jaime's character development and had him stop his sister killing her, something like that. But I think having a trial pulls it out too much, and it's just too much. So I don't know. What else do we have here? Best GOT meme? Anything with Tormund in it. What else do we got here? Okay, well, Nico says, Dragon takes Daenerys' body north of the wall, according to the leak, and Jon... What? Drogon takes Daenerys' body north of the wall, according to the leak, and Jon is going to be close there. Think we're going to get a shot of the three of them to close the ending. I don't know. I haven't seen that one. That's funny. We'll see. But honestly, guys, I think that's it. I think I answered all your questions. Yeah, wow. So this is going, 20 minutes until the show airs. That's crazy. Oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I've been here for a while. I'm sorry, guys. You just saw my pit stains. Anyways, what was I talking about? 20 minutes out from the episode. That's crazy. It's going to be the wrap up of Game of Thrones entirely. Wow. I just want to say, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Thank you guys for providing your questions. Thank you guys for, donating me money. It's incredible. But yeah, all in all, just thank you for being a part of the conversation. Thank you for talking Game of Thrones. It was great. I love that I was able to share, geeking out on Thrones with all of you guys. It's absolutely awesome. And this today's going to be the end of a chapter. It's exciting, right? So we know we're going to get more Game of Thrones in the future, maybe a year, 2 years down the line. Who knows? With me, we're going to do another Game of Thrones live stream later. But what I will say is, let me know, and I'll do another avenue. Not just this live stream. I'll open something else up too. But I want to know what you guys want from me. What content is the best? What do you guys want to see? Whether it's TV, movies, it could be even outside of that, more conversation-based stuff, right? Obviously Game of Thrones is over, so some rebranding is going to have to happen. So we'll have to figure that out as we go. Maybe I'll take more of a face presence, but I still want to do videos where I'm kind of editing content over my voice. But yeah, like I said, thank you guys all for your support. We'll figure out a direction of the channel later. But now we can just enjoy Game of Thrones, enjoy the last episode. I'll have a video up later today, or tonight. So like 12 o'clock, we'll be able to look at that. But yeah, that's really it. I should really get to my dog because he's probably shit all over the house because I've been neglecting him for the last couple hours. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Lorraine. Thanks, Sip. Thank Pee Hui. Thank Marilyn Bentley. Thank you so much. I remember you. You've been around for a while. Thank you for the support. Thank you, Tina, Maurice, Janessa, Dylan, Jonathan, S. Marie, Ariana, Ray, Cameron, Phyllis, Loki, and Jack. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy the last episode. I would love to hear your thoughts in this video or my reaction video. Live stream, I will hold myself accountable, hopefully tomorrow. I will put a notification in the community, so you'll be able to look at that. But that is it. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the show.